First.
So this last year, I was almost see them. I imagine them.
I hit a level of poorness. I had my dad in my food today.
So sad.
I support. Especially sort of sensitive, I'm walking and I'm like, I know I thought there's a hole in it, a whole bottle. Like your dad, but then running because we have a pressure. I'm like, oh, get on there. But
Your mom did get you bread bags?
she does. Oh. No, that was a long time ago. Little works a lot better. I know it's better. That was with my blue boots. My blue and silver blue boots. Hey, you had blue boots. Not so long. Yo, I was saying, you're gonna say, all I had were red. With tennis shoes.
68 from other.
They sent a bag that had bags that was literally.
Another trauma. It's just trauma.
I don't know, I've been reading. I made it for it, and I said, that, I want to do that. Ways to really. I was like it, but it does like strike.
Just surprised.
Words and I just. I won't be very simple. I picked it back up, but I didn't.
Sorry, everybody, the supervisor is not here yet.
But it's hard to
neither are the
absorb
trustees.
some of it, you know.
They should be rolling in any second now.
They know it's not 7, right?
Yeah.
So.
Reminded you.
I know, I figured you saw that on the agenda at 7, I was like, oh, it was probably. I did, yeah, it was posted for 5 years, that's good, otherwise we hear it's not. Yeah. And that was good. I'm not coming as other.
No, she's a better medicine. That's.
Yeah, when I get done with it, he'll give you like treat on pass.
It's probably the thing I need more trauma. Is it good?
I like some, you know, so it's good.
Yeah. They're really this.
On the line of, we didn't do that here.
No.
The last one, but the week.
Actors.
It's like Victor Frankl. There's. I just got a positive because of the one, I mean, so I didn't get that. But it's listing us.
Audio is part of my membership now, so I need to.
Thanks, I was gonna ask you your packets. I was just gonna.
I didn't bring any extra big butter.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I guess that's some of what I think we're gonna.
So I have Ally from Plant. Just trying to get the account straight again. I'll explain, so what we're gonna.
That was the after the fact.
Our conversation.
Is she there?
I think it's curious.
Yeah, this is Ally. So I just told her, instead of separate funds, I said, it's separate economics. So it's a general fund, 101, and then the Metro PAG, the capital, like, Iron Bridge, it's still. Yeah, the our accounts under that fund. So we are kind of merging them into that. In a way, they're not separate bank accounts, so we just do them as separate accounts. So it's
Like something.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure it's not like.
Because they started with the different, the first 3 numbers were different. So when there's transactions in there.
Oh, I got the, yes, it's right here.
When there's transactions that were written out of it, I don't know how amount happened. was that it would be like a natural fund and a general funding fund and accountable. So that's why, ties with, yeah. So in this case, I'll do that.
Yeah, I got it.
Because it's okay like that. Yeah.
Anybody need agenda?
But it's under the metro.
You've just been doing cake.
Yeah, it would be 101 and then whatever the metro number is, 214 or whatever. And then, yeah.
Oh, shit, did you read that?
Agenda, then you.
Why are we still doing that as a, because they want to hold it down. I wasn't.
The way that it's spread on there. Was something doing that. Some friends, pick one. Hey, he puts on the wall.
Okay, good.
I think he pretty much reassured us that, yeah. I think it's good. Now.
He's coming, it's just gonna be a little late.
Oh, no, there's not.
Probably a preview or short.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm probably gonna use short term rental. I gotta drive the other side of tractors.
Yeah, it's look out.
Recording already?
Yes.
We still have the new funds for me in class. So. It's for me to see that out, you know. We really are big to work and do this. Because it didn't matter.
Okay, I need one copy. Okay, so we have some. Yes, awesome. It was just wording about. Township board. That's not even rather than the clerk or choice. Oh, I don't change. Oh, here's your.
And let's see what.
Chris, Christine. Someone's trying to zoom in and it's telling them there's another meeting going on.
Are they trying to start a meeting? Or join the meeting? They need to join the meeting, not start the meeting.
All right, okay, go ahead and get the meeting started. I would just ask that,
They're trying to join.
the invocation, you could include. Was it
Well,
right
Jen must
families
have
or,
launched the meeting.
two boys that were lost on. Right,
Right.
break.
I'm not sure if it's finished yet.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Go ahead and have the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we have together and time to do the business of the township. We do pray for your help, your guidance, your wisdom. We pray, Lord, that you direct us as we go through these ordinances and whatever business that we have to deal with tonight. We also lift up those in our community, our county that are grieving during the holidays, especially those who just lost their sons in a tragic accident. God, we pray for the comfort of the Holy Spirit to minister to their hearts. We pray, Lord, that you guide them and walk with them through the process of grief in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, roll call.
Oh, Michelle Jackson, Christine Johnson here, Jen LaFew,
Here.
Bob Underhill, not here yet, and David Class.
Here. Okay, does anybody have any conflicts they would like to disclose today? Anything? No disclosures? Michelle, no? All right. All indicating no. Okay, we have a agenda. I screwed up and put the time still at 7 o'clock, so that I think that would be probably at least the only correction there. Should say 5:30. Cut and paste error.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, any public comment? Anybody would like to make a comment before we get started? Anything? All right. Anybody on Zoom care to make an initial comment, public comment? All right, then we'll go ahead and move on to the reconciliation proposal. Does anybody besides me think it's a little warm in here?
It's.
Dave, we just went through public comment and there was none. Do you have anything you'd like to share before we get started?
I'm all set, thank
Okay.
you for asking.
All right, number 7, reconciliation proposal. Michelle, do you have something there?
Well, we had proposals, we spoke to Grant Moran on Monday as well as the state of Michigan. So they have provided a proposal to do, the reconciliation and the balance of the conversion up through December. And they thought that by doing it till the end of the year, they would be able to straighten out any flaws or anything that they might have, any errors. So, I mean, I'm in agreement, I'm comfortable with that. They do have to work with the general ledgers to get those straightened out, to be able to do the reconciliation, as we talked about at our last board meeting. We've only been able to reconcile the road. So, so we definitely need some more work on the general ledger, but they did provide an amendment, to the original, proposal they gave us. The state of Michigan stated that it was sufficient for what they would need to be able to reimburse us. So, that was very, good news. They want to be able to do this. They couldn't give us like a week or 2 weeks. But they are under the understanding that it is of urgency, so that Jim is able to start working on the budget. And they are also going to, as phase 2 of the original proposal, phase 1, they are gonna work with Jim on the budget. So they're going to be guiding him through the GL numbers and the steps that he needs to do to be able to have a valid budget to be able to work off of. And my understanding is also working with amendments, how to do the amendments and things of that nature. So they're going to add in another phase, and that phase is the reconciliation. The state has proposed the same language, that is, it is continued upon the state's approval that we go forward with it, and if they approve it to reimburse us, but they're relatively confident that it's going to be a moot issue. And so I took notes, basically going over not 1 month, but going through December. And let me see if there was anything else. I brought the whole list.
I think that we're gonna pick it up pick it up in July or something prior to the thing.
I'm sorry.
They were gonna go back all the way to July.
Yes, they,
Right.
because they're saving the last reconciliation,
They actually
was
asked me for
probably
April.
June.
Oh, wow.
There's-
They asked me for the whole fiscal year.
Yeah, so they're stating that, June was probably the last reconciliation till the information went over to the conversion for the estimate. So, and we know that the information that they have now, they solidified, it came off of the auditors. The information from the auditor, the information, because he kind of moves stuff around, the information is incorrect. And that is what's stalling the reconciliation, so they wanna be able to force the reconciliations. And get that done through December, so they can focus mainly on, the budget. So, it sounds very good, it sounds very promising, and they are, definitely under the understanding that there is urgency, that it's just not open-ended, that it can take as long as they want to get it done. So, we're looking at January, they assure that we can have that wrapped up sometime in January to be able to facilitate the March budget for March first, and then they said they would be able to come back if anything happened between then and April, they would be able to do any amendments. So did you have anything that you wanted to add to that from the?
There's one more piece.
Sure.
And that is, there's gonna help us policy with.
Yes, that's phase
Yeah,
three.
so I just wanted to throw that out there. They've.
Yeah, so phase three, they're gonna work with us on procedures, policies, and also procedures and policies for not only the board, but also for the committees. As far as, so that everybody's on board with how we're doing things moving forward. So the goal is to get everything nice and tidy and cleaned up, so that moving forward, we're able to, follow those policies and procedures and be able to adopt them if everybody is in agreement with them. And, so at the end of, I mean, my goal would be at the end of this 4-year term of this board, that whether we're the next board or a new board is coming in, that everything is nice and tidy for them to be able to pick up where we left off.
Okay, so what do we need to do then today? We need to vote?
We need to vote, on the, reconciliation portion, so that we can get that into Eric.
Mhm.
And Eric would like to get that tomorrow, have you
Yeah.
sign it, get it to him tomorrow, so he can
I've already received.
fast track it. Yes, so that's the goal, is to get it fast tracked, get it approved and money allocated on their end. And when we say allocate on their end, we pay it, they reimburse us once it's paid.
We pay Plant Moran, the state of Michigan reimburses
Yes.
us. Which is what it's been already, I
Yes.
think already like 13,000 or
Yes,
something.
yep,
So we're fortunate to have them
yeah,
working with us.
absolutely. And they've been great. All of them have been great. Plant Moran has been great. The state of Michigan has been great as well. They have provided us a lot of information and given us a lot of advice.
Okay, I guess I'll make the motion that we approve the, I think it was December 9th.
Yes.
Addendum to our. Was it phase 1A?
Yes,
Phase 1A reconciliation package from Plant Moran.
a nice one.
Probably do roll call vote with that.
You said it's phase 1A.
Phase 1A is the reconciliation portion.
And that was motion by Michelle.
By me and second by Michelle.
Second by Michelle. So trying to
No, you're
help
fine.
people get on.
Mhm.
Oh, good, Teresa made it on. Yes. Okay, roll call vote. Christine Johnson, yes. David Koss,
Yes.
Michelle Jackson,
Yes.
Jim LePew,
Yes.
and absent Bob Underhill.
He may be here before the end of the meeting. I'm hoping he told me he would make a supreme effort. He has a daughter in a music recital tonight and he
Oh,
wanted to be there, so
We
it
know.
was kind of a time crunch thing, so he'll be here, but just not right exactly when he needs to be. Okay, move on to number 8 with the Northwest Michigan Education Services Agreement. This is just something that we collect taxes for the, like TBA and special education services for the county, I believe is,
Northwest Education Services,
yes.
and this provides, we collect the taxes for them and we collect an admin fee.
I have a general question because I do tax.
Sure.
So we get a fee from Caucasica Public Schools for doing their taxes in the summer. Why don't we do it from these guys?
In the summer.
Yeah, we collect their taxes in the summer. Why do they not pay a fee as well? I've been trying to get a fee.
Isn't that what we're here right now to do?
This is the admin fee, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've never sent them a bill like we do Caucasica, that I've been, so I don't understand why Caucasica, and it's just a nice question, I'm not trying to.
Wouldn't that be part of the same thing? We're collecting for Kalkaska.
No, because we send that money, we send Northwest Ed money on their own.
In the paperwork that I got, whatever, they went along with whatever Kalkaska did. The same way, they're partnering with Elk Rapids, whatever Elk Rapids decide, they go along with that. I got the paperwork now, but we never did anything separately with the two of them.
I don't understand, so if Caucasica pays it, isn't that for Caucasica, they're not paying it for Northwest Ed.
Isn't Northwest Ed part of Kalkaska
Yeah.
is what I was thinking.
No, Northwest Ed is their own stuff.
Unless they.
Northwest Ed does all of Traverse City School, and I don't,
Oh, the area.
yeah, but they're not part of Caucasica.
I just.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Delivered states deliver summer school tax collections on the same schedule as agreed upon with Kalkaska Public Schools.
But that's just a schedule, but who's paying, do they pay a fee? That's why I'm genuinely curious. It's like, why are we only charging Caucasica when Northwestern, unless Northwestern reimburses Caucasica? I don't know how that works, but it doesn't make sense to me.
This is something we collect on all properties or just the Elk Rapids area?
Well, it's Caucasica and Elk Rapids, well, Elk Rapids,
So
we
both.
collect in the winter, so they don't pay the extra, but Northwest Ed, I do cut them checks in the summer.
Mhm.
For the summer taxes, so we're collecting in the summer. Just curious.
They probably just asked them.
I tried calling Jeff Scroggins at Caucasica, he was returning my phone call.
Mhm. Could you follow up on that if you already have the contact?
I feel like
I'm looking.
Dawn says, she goes, that's a good question, I don't know.
You may have called on a no school day or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've done it before,
The
so.
resolution that they provided, the tax levy resolution, and I don't see like there is a percentage, but I know that we have collected for them in the past. So are you suggesting that we go back to them and, tie a admin fee to that?
Well, it's not, I mean, it's a, I don't know, it's called an admin fee, but, because our admin fees are the 1% of the villages and stuff, but. I'm just curious, I don't know how that
So it
works.
is 1% of the school tax and they work with, Elk Rapids and Kalkaska schools.
No, it's 1%, it's not just the school stuff that we collect, that 1% admin.
We always got, right after I was elected, I had to deal with this, and that's when Barb Cramble said, Elk Rapids is the one that doesn't wanna do this, and I had a guy's name at that time. They wanted to do their own thing, it was too high, but this company, they sent paperwork that we had to sign, and that they just go.
I have a copy of
Yes,
the
I have a short, I'm just saying, why is there not a $3 or something fee that we charge Caucasica schools?
Mhm.
We would have charged Elk Rapids school, but they decided to do their winter, in winter. I'm still sending them separate checks or I'm sending them a good amount of money for summer.
Ooh,
Why are we not Northwest Ed?
oh, okay.
So there was a resolution that was signed between the school districts and Northwest, Education Services.
So the $3 is something that we get from Calcasas, part of that is supposed to be from Northwest Ed.
I believe so, a total of one. Including debt services.
So they're not actually giving us 9,000, Calcasas is giving us 4,500, and
And
Northwest Ed is reimbursing them, which is weird, do you think that?
here is the actual resolution.
Just don't
And
understand.
it's hard to read, but you can pass it around, so.
You should have held it up over there. Okay,
But we can pass it around.
I'll ask Mr. Scroggins.
And I mean, it's not immediate that we sign it tonight, I mean, we're gonna have our board meeting, you know, next week, that we can find out if that is in fact, what it is, the resolution, percent of the, school.
We could do that before we.
So, let's get additional information,
That makes
and
sense.
then we'll circle back to it at our next meeting.
Oh, so it says the fee for collecting the school district's summer tax levy is included in the per parcel payment as negotiated by Elk Rapids. On this one, so then the next one's probably, no, it's just Elk Rapids.
And we don't get it, we don't get it.
We don't do this in the summer for Elk Rapids.
So just,
So this is null and void for Elk Rapids. There's Calcasas that mentioned on here.
So then we need to come up with a new agreement for the summer taxes, is what you're saying, for Northwest Michigan?
We're not collecting Elk Rapids summer tax, summer, school, we're not collecting it. For Elk Rapids, we only collect it for Calcasas, and this is just Elk Rapids.
It was,
So if they want Elk Rapids, they're gonna have to pay, because Elk Rapids is paying.
and there was another part of that.
I got a lot of questions, not really
I think
answers.
you can pull it to on voting on that.
The supervisors, let's do
Yeah,
Additional.
Elk Rapids isn't paying us, so we're not gonna do it if,
Unknown.
I would say no on this, if Elk Rapids isn't paying us.
Right.
Then we're gonna say no, summer taxes for Elk Rapids.
Unless
For them.
they're willing to pay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna vote on this, I'd definitely say no, because and the reason is, Elk Rapids doesn't pay us to collect their taxes in the summer.
I never got whenever they said, no, I never got another thing from them.
I wonder if Northwest Ed knows that they're not doing it in the summer.
Well, that's what I mean, let's get some more information from them and circle back to it next Thursday. Does that work for
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah, I just wanna know who's gonna be following up, is that something? you
Well,
want
I
to do?
thought you.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't, hard to open my mouth.
She has more stuff to do.
Can we agree now on the amount,
Little thing.
and then you can have information to pass on?
You know, saying, okay, whatever
Okay, $3.94 or something,
$3.94, I believe.
and that's per parcel? For the non-Elk Rapids?
that, I think there's only like 116 or something, I think it was like really small, I don't know if it was much, but.
But still,
Yeah.
I mean, it's work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're gonna table that till the 18th meeting,
Yes, sir.
and Dee is gonna research, with Mr. Scroggins, you said? Okay.
Well, it's called Casca, but yeah, I'll was that.
Okay. Move on to number 9. Couple weeks ago at our November meeting, we discussed the cemetery ordinance. We had some issues with language on the difference between the clerk and the township board's designee or cemetery designee. So I went through and purged all of the clerk wordage. Well, actually, I added the designee, cemetery designee to all the language, and then I realized that after giving it to Christine to look over, that I needed to pull off the clerk stuff, so we have a third version, and it is, I emailed it to everybody earlier,
The version I have still is, that I printed off, was in section 3, still has the township clerk or township board cemetery plan, however, so
okay,
I'm assuming then
this version removes all of the instances, and there isn't that many, there's, literally about 8.
And my understanding is that, if there's a new board that comes in and the clerk decides that they want to do that, then they have that right.
They would still be a designee.
Yep, they would become the board designee. Currently, our board designee is still D, if I'm, correct? Okay, so, previously, we approved this to send to our legal department for review. Pending the wording changes that I just talked about with the clerk, so,
And the liability.
Did you have a vote on that to remove the clerk of that?
yes, we did that, yes.
I don't know if I'm not,
You added the liability statement
People asked.
for, being on cemetery property.
Um. Honestly, I think I did, but let me,
I'm not sure if we voted on it, but I mean, I'm not.
it was right at the end, I think.
So
Disclaimer of township liability and
Yeah.
responsibility. Should I read that section that was added?
Yeah.
Okay, quickly, one paragraph here, this is something that we added, trying to think, did it come out of the MTA book, cemetery book actually? Okay,
And that being added, with that being said, we're not gonna, we're proving to have this go to our attorney to review it.
Right,
correct?
right.
So the language in that edition may not pass the muster, there might be some.
That is possible,
Okay.
sure. I'll read it real quick here. And again, this was, something that we added to reduce liability for the township for visitors to the cemetery. So section 17, disclaimer of township liability and responsibility. Every person who enters, remains in, and travels within a township cemetery does so at their own risk. The township is not responsible for any injury, accident, or other calamity that might occur to any person present in a township cemetery. Furthermore, the township is not responsible for any damage or vandalism to, theft of, or deterioration of any burial monument, headstone, flower, urn, or other item placed at or near burial space or anywhere in a township cemetery. The purchaser or transferee of any burial space or equivalent and all subsequent transferees, assigns, heirs, or beneficiaries hereby releases, waives, indemnifies, and holds harmless the township from any against any injury, damages, causes of action, claims, costs, and expenses associated with, relating to, and or involving the burial space or similar right, any headstone, monument, or similar items, and any matter related to the cemetery involved. Such waiver, release, and hold harmless provision shall apply not only to the township, but also to the township sexton and any township employee, officer, official, or agent. So it's just a liability disclaimer. Having added that, I'll make the motion that we go ahead and approve the ordinance number 25, the cemetery ordinance, to be sent to our legal team for review and
I got a question.
scrutiny. Yes,
So section 3,
okay,
it references the township clerk, is that supposed to be in there?
township clerk.
Yeah, it's still in there in section. That's in the.
Oh, that sure is. That must not be in this correction.
This is the one that you,
The most
Yes,
recent.
yeah, I agree. Yep,
council.
yep, that's right.
So we want to strike that.
Yeah. It's right in the first paragraph, yeah. All right, that one I missed apparently. All right, well, I'll slightly change my thing that after I correct this section 3, the wording of the township clerk, and remove it. That we approve the ordinance 25, the cemetery ordinance, for passing it to the attorney for review.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Just while we're right here for a brief second, we did have some policies and procedures that that Dee provided us, our board designated, person for the cemetery. I was curious if this is something that we also wanted to pass on to the attorney, just to have him look at it, or?
No, I would, yeah, I would
Yeah.
include it.
We did go over this at the meeting
Yeah, we've
a couple months
approved it.
ago. Yep. So I'll go ahead and include that in my motion, and, if there anybody wants to change their vote, if I do that, or are we still in favor of sending it on to the Lord?
I'm in favor.
Okay, with the,
Is there something we had at the last meeting you said?
I'm sorry, yeah, we reviewed that, those procedures, it's basically like how to transfer deeds and. There's another thing, just how to transfer stuff, you know, it was, not something, not enforceable stuff, it was more procedure stuff, you know, like what does the funeral home's responsibilities include and different things like that, so.
Do we still wanna have the clerk's office in there as a language on that page?
Um,
Is
Are
that
you-
part for the transferring because,
mhm.
isn't that considered a historic, those historical documents?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a document thing. Cause the clerk keeps those documents, of course, then again, whoever does me is gonna keep those documents.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, several,
yeah, there is some.
several of those paragraphs have the clerk,
Cause it went off the original ordinance.
Mhm,
the clerk's office or designee.
mhm. Well,
If he's doing the same thing.
Actually, it would be both there because the clerk's office is responsible for record retention. But so would the designee be responsible for record retention, so I think in that case, it would be both.
I agree.
all right, so then I will go ahead and include this for next item, just for his review or whatever. Makes perfect sense. All right. Any other discussion on cemetery before we move on?
And nobody was changing their vote based on that?
I didn't see
I'm not
anybody
changing my
do
vote.
that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I did see one hand, go ahead quickly,
Has anybody ever been hurt? That you know
at the cemetery. I don't know of anybody, just off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean that, you know, it couldn't happen, but.
Just curious.
I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong there, you know, fall, somebody's running or whatever, that mean.
With our maintenance mowing and even when we had people before, there was damage done to some, obviously done by mowers. Is that if a person comes in and said, Mike, you know, it's been damaged,
Mhm.
are we noticing them and those extra? Make sure what we've got and see if there's any, so you can compare, if someone says, hey, this is cracked or
Something,
whatever. You know, a lot of them had to run.
Alleviated
There's
the
a lot,
liability of the maintenance or a sexton, that it wouldn't be liable.
it also, not only absolved the township, but the workers who are employed there, so.
Is there a section in the ordinance about leaving stuff on the gravesite, so?
I do believe.
There was, yes,
There was or
there is.
do you want that stated? Can you state it for the record? That way we have it, cause there's been a lot of questions.
We're asking.
Community. You just have to read.
Yeah,
It should be started in section 8, right?
okay,
No glass spaces or containers.
no artificial lighting, includes solar powered lighting is allowed, no glass spaces, containers may be left, or containers may be left at gravesites. No digging, grading, or mounding unless authorized by this ordinance. No private signs, lighting, or other displays unless approved by this ordinance.
Your fires and different things.
That's pretty specific though, or do we wanna generalize some of that, cause that's. That doesn't cover fish and bowls and,
Swords.
Well, I don't think we can sit here and list everything that you
no, I mean,
can't.
but there should be like a general word in there, some mention there. Instead of listing all of it.
Just like everything leaves by October first or something.
It's almost better to tell them what they can put there rather than.
Yeah, well, there's that, but
That's usually.
maybe ask the attorney how we can word that differently to have it be.
Only one monument or memorial shall be permitted per burial space. Well,
I'm thinking over the attorney to try to fix that area and make it. Sense.
Is there anything grandfathered in?
No, cause that's always been there. It's always been the ordinance,
They said,
they didn't enforce it.
well, it says there shall be no private signs, lighting, or other displays unless approved. No firearms, weapons shall be discharged other than military organizations.
so that includes the sunlight things they put there.
They said solar power lights.
No shrubs or trees may be planted.
But they can have urns and they can put flowers in them and stuff. And then we have.
Concrete urns, yeah, plastic or glass. Ceramic, I think they're supposed to be concrete. I think that section, you know, it needs to be,
The attorney would probably be able to give us some, what,
it's all
based
wording.
on maybe on what.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my uncles have cemeteries and they have just a virtual flat, 2 urns, and they all have to be of a specific things and metal. That doesn't mean people don't do it, right?
Yeah. But I mean, that covers it if it gets broken, we're gonna just sit there anyways,
Right,
so here we are.
it's the liability. So
One person commented, they put a wreath out. They put something that holds a wreath for their mother on a regular basis, even over the winter, and said, you gotta call it bullshit.
They do
Okay.
have
So like this
blankets.
So is that included?
If it's still about cemetery, go ahead. Okay, so,
Use that last paragraph.
Well, it is about
Under
cemetery.
grounds maintenance,
okay,
the
that-
township has the authority to remove.
and dispose of all growth, emblems, displays, containers, and other items that through decay and deterioration have become unsightly, a source of litter or a maintenance problem.
I got one question, I don't think it was fixed, but there is a, stone fell over, I think it didn't have a good base, is that taken care of? And if not, who does that?
The family has been notified.
The family is taking care of it.
I still put the flag there, I had to find it, yeah.
Yep, I know right where you're talking. about.
Outside the township
We're
is
not
not responsible for lost or
responsible.
stolen merchandise.
Okay.
We should maybe say damage.
The section 12 for records, did you say the township clerk is okay to leave that in there?
I think so.
Section 12,
Yes.
I thought that was the one I pulled
No.
Oh, this is in the actual record. The clerk's office is a record, would be the record.
Yeah, for records.
Okay.
I do keep the records in the office.
Perfect. All right.
And then there also is,
There's a lot.
Are they BSNA now?
2 weeks ago or a month ago.
I don't know that I've ever looked at that, so.
Well, personally, I know I have it, cause
Okay, we're through, with the cemetery ordinance. I will open the board discussion up on the short-term rental ordinance.
Well, before you
Number
take
10.
that, we want to make
Oh,
sure
I'm sorry.
that you have the
Yeah,
authorization
I
to
see
collect
that.
taxes, cause you collect them when you're there.
Yeah.
You're covered under our bond anyway, and I'm comfortable with that, so.
So we can do that by motion, I believe. I'm not gonna make a motion appointing me to do something.
I'll make an emotion to collect money when you're there for taxes.
She gave me the 3 days.
Yeah, so are you available 29th?
That's if they catch you there, right?
Yes. I don't know, maybe in January or something, I'll post some hours where I'll be there. We'll see.
Is it just for collecting taxes or is it for any revenue?
I
Because
believe
he
any
also-
revenue, cause he already does short-term rentals and he already does,
You mean,
or not short-term rentals,
Township
but
rentals.
township rentals, so I'm comfortable with that. He said you're covered under our bond,
Correct.
so, and I believe, what is the bond, the exact number?
I don't know, it was like 10,000 coming to mind, I think it should, I don't know if it's more than, I don't know, don't quote me.
Yeah, so I mean, you're already covered. The bond for the township, so.
All like, all,
Relatively
yeah,
just.
the employees and.
That would be a designee,
designee.
treasurer's designee.
You are allowed to have more than one designee, correct?
Yes, we also had Joanne would be able to fill in, we did that,
On sick day,
on a sick day, so we also have Joanne.
or I don't know if it's just Joanne, it's the right to
Yeah,
pull
so
somebody
we
in.
did with Joanne,
Yeah.
yeah, so we have the.
That was an emergency, I believe.
Yeah.
Emergency appointment.
Yeah,
I feel an emergency. Since December.
You feel an emergency.
The 29th.
If you wanna go ahead and include her in your motion now,
well, we don't want just, we want it to be somebody, I mean, obviously she knows how to do it, but
Right,
we don't wanna just put her name on it,
Yes.
we wanna be able to have it as an emergency person.
right, because if she has an emergency, then we would need another emergency person.
Yeah, help us all.
I
so
know.
you want the board to just give you,
And no, this right here is specifically for Jim to be able to collect.
Yeah, we already voted on it,
Yeah, we are,
but now we got Jim, so if we're sick, we'll see Jim.
I feel.
Sleep time.
Okay, so with having that motion made, any discussion before we vote on that?
is there a second?
I second
You made the
made
motion.
it. Oh, I hear Stan second. See, I trusted you.
I don't know if I can make the motion or second the motion on myself, but I'll do it.
You
I'm
can.
not sure. Okay, I'll second that.
Well, you have to be a willing participant, so.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, get to the main event here. All right, we are, in the process of discussing and approving the short-term rental ordinance amongst the board to send it on to our legal team. I will just mention that I can, absolutely state here that we will receive that back from the attorney at some point with some modifications, I assume. And at that point, we will be having a public hearing, like a final thing before we actually vote on the adoption or the non-adoption of it, whatever the case may be. But today it is just gonna be, for the most part, us, the board, discussing, the points in the ordinance, anything that we can't live with, or we, actually, it's just open for discussion. We'll, at some point, decide whether or not we're ready to make the motion to send it on or not, but right now, we're just take it as it is. Just, I know we've all had it for some time now, and hopefully everybody's read
There
it.
was one section,
Mhm.
and I know that this is one that we like. When we had adopted the dollar one.
Mhm.
If you want to test it, it said it was 0.05.
I have that too.
Oh, do you? Oh. So, just the bottom, the 3.05.
3.4.
With the R1. And that would be, if we were able to do the software where people that were doing short-term rentals in a residential area, they would be able to go on and they'd be able to plug in the prospective dates that they plan to utilize for their period of time in residential.
What if someone rented after April 1st? That would,
I think that's when it would begin. It would be beginning April 1st, like the short-term rental. I mean, that right there is not part of ours.
right,
That is part of
So-
one that, Blue Lake Township has adopted.
Mhm.
We would obviously have to get, additional input, but,
Is that the same?
that
as
would be
this?
that would be a protection for,
number,
it would be a protection for people that live in a residential area.
As an addendum.
But still allowing, those in a residential area to be able to do, short-term rental. But mainly the short-term rental, that is specific to residential area,
That's exactly what Darren gave us.
For instance. Did you want to, do you mind if I?
He gave that as an addendum too,
Perfect.
to add to.
You know, when I talked to.
so
that's
it
where-
was, my understanding that maybe that was something we could send along with the ordinance for the lawyer to balance
Well, this is the ownership, limitation, this is the art. Is it,
that's 304 on your red paper.
right, or 305 is the one.
304 is what's on your hand right there.
Yes, 304 is, so 305 is the one for
So
residential, and that would be for people in the residential area, they would just be
Yeah,
going
305
on.
and this was 304, so it's two different things.
Yeah, it's two different things, so.
One is requiring the dates, the
Yes.
other one is limiting, ownership. A person applying for a short-term rental license under this ordinance shall not hold any form of ownership or leasehold interest in more than one short-term rental within the township.
And the one that I would be interested in, getting more information is the one below that.
Yes.
That would be,
305.
because, yes, because right now with short-term rentals, our ordinance that we have in place says no short.
Correct.
So with the draft, this opens up short-term rentals, but it also limits the time for short-term rentals in a residential area, other than you get a certain amount of time, you go online. With some potential software that we might be able to work with zoning on, where you go in and you put, these are the dates that, we're gonna be renting out in a residential. Area, so maybe if you have people that live in the residential area, maybe they decide that. These people are gonna be here on, we're gonna go on vacation. I don't, kind of keeps the balance in just the residential area portion, are we?
So again, these were considerations to send along with the, these were not part of the draft.
Right, so I know Dan, had the 3.004, but the 3.05 is for strictly for the R1.
On that 3.05,
Mm-hmm.
So the owner submitting a list by April 1st. But more rental inquiries or, things might happen after that date.
Yeah, so in the way I see it, there's no requirement to report. Like, let's say you were half rented at April 1st and then, throughout the rest of April and May, you fill your whole schedule. There's no requirement to add those dates to
Well, I don't know how we would enforce, you know what I mean, we would
Yeah.
have to have give or take, you know, in those residential areas, I don't know how we would.
I see a lot of issues with enforcement, that's gonna be a whole nother ball of wax.
Mhm.
You know, if
I
and
just-
when we do ever get this up and running.
I would just like to see some protections for people in, you know, that are in, residential areas.
Hmm.
That.
Well, I think that's what the whole purpose of this is to
Yeah.
kind of protect.
And now, you know, our ordinance that we have now that is in effect, right? States no short-term rentals within the township, so this is ordinance is kind of a balance.
What would be the purpose of the list of the dates to be read for the upcoming season?
Well, in the residence or in the ordinance, it allows for so many weeks, so if you were just renting for the allowable amount of weeks, and I think we,
Dan had gone over it.
yeah.
But what I'm saying is, by April first, I mean, you're just gonna be reporting what you have by April first. Most of, the majority may come in after April first, so what's the,
Mhm. Yeah, I see that as
That's
a
true.
problem.
yeah,
And then I can also see that if you live in a residential area and you have people, you know, coming in and doing a short-term rental in the house next to you, having some idea, you know, when you can anticipate having those individuals. But again, I agree, it's a list that probably is unenforceable and you would have to have, you know, leeway on each side of, the amount of time that they have in the residential.
I mean, if you wanna know what's going on for rentals in the upcoming year, why have an April first date in there?
I think it's gonna be part of the permit, if that's my understanding.
Mhm. But I can see where that is a, you know, what if people don't even open up their rental, they decide in the middle of May, hey, let's do Airbnb this year, you know, and now we have 0 days or weeks reported,
Mhm.
so that would kind of be in conflict with
Up in
that.
April, but they don't get the request until May or June.
Mhm.
You don't know.
Um,
I see the point of it, trying to make sure that they're sticking with the 5.04 limitations. Because they only have 4 weeks
okay, 4 weeks, yeah.
or 28 days.
Mhm.
And then you would have to have a week leeway, you know what I mean, either way
Mhm.
for that.
And,
So ultimately.
if you look at 504, number 2. Exempt 504. Are dwelling units that have been rented on a continuous yearly basis from prior to June 17th, 1973, the effective date of the zoning ordinance. These exempted properties are subject to all of the provisions of this ordinance, so all other provisions other than the 4-week limitation. And the other limitations, rental period of minimum of 5 days.
And then the other thing that I was curious about, is 5.05. So then they list, do they use, ANSI standards for what they consider a conforming bedroom? Is it above grade, has a closet, has ingress, egress?
All that is,
And definitions.
definitions.
But you know, I think it's July 2022,
Which is Article 4.
Article 4. That ANSI updated their standards.
Um. I would just say this, I'm grateful to the planning commission for what they've come up with here, but I feel this is very restrictive. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have restrictions, but there's like, to me, a lot of questions I have on how we can enforce some of the restrictions.
I think the enforcement is gonna be the difficult task.
Mhm.
And then the other question that I had that I guess I would like the attorney would be able to tell us is what the new ANSI standards are.
Mhm.
You know, as far as what is considered a bedroom.
Well, that is listed in your bedroom.
Yeah, but it's ANSI standards changed July of 2022, so.
Well, when you say ANSI standard,
ANSI, so if somebody comes in and appraises a property,
ANSI, is that what you?
ANSI, I believe.
Okay.
So if somebody comes in, an appraiser and appraises a property in a residential area
Okay,
that somebody is using as a short-term rental,
okay,
they would not include a basement, anything below grade, they would not include that as a bedroom. They would not include if there's no windows, no ingress, no egress, and no closet, it would not be considered.
That's how they define it in this.
yep, I'm thinking that's almost word for word where it is.
And then I'm not sure with the, 70 square feet, either like how many people can you have it, that amount of space.
2 persons per bedroom.
2-person per bedroom, they have 70 square feet.
Or as defined by the health department
Okay.
in their septic system.
I'm trying to interject myself is okay, I'm a Airbnb owner. And I'm technically operating illegally because technically they don't
Allow them,
allow it, although we have
no enforcement.
collectively agreed that, you know, existing ones are the grandfather term, we've heard a lot. And I'm hesitant to say, how do we prove that? How do we go after the information to find out who's been here since 73 doing this?
Mhm.
I mean, certainly there's a lot of them that have been doing it for many years.
Right.
But all the way back to 73, which this ordinance says that has to be all the way back to 1973. Where are we gonna get those records? How are we gonna determine who is grandfather?
Do we have those records?
I don't have those records.
And
They would have to be the individual owners' records. They'd have to be able to show that they've done renting, which they should have tax records for that.
But I mean, again, that would only exempt them from 504. But,
In our law.
yes. So that is a question I have. I don't know, you know, how we go about determining that, because I'm sure there will be some that say that they have been doing that, and I'm thinking there'll probably be many that have some kind of documentation, but I think there'll be a lot of those that don't have the documentation either. That's pretty far back of a date, you know, to try to come up with.
Right, and who's keeping the records that long?
Mhm. So that's a problem, a question that I'm
Just a
concerned.
point on the topic, isn't a legal non-conforming use go with the property and not the individual owner?
A legal non-conforming use, that sounds like a double negative of some
Well,
kind.
No, Is that the right way to
When the
say it?
ordinance was created, there was legal non-conforming and then there was legal conforming.
Okay,
If you were currently renting as a resort or however, you were legal but non-conforming. And the time that they gave you a year, if you didn't rent this place out within a year, then you now became legal conforming. That was the zone ordinance.
It's something that legal non-conforming in general would be something that would not be legal if you started it up now.
Mhm.
But it is allowed because it was previously not regulated prior to the current date.
But it goes with the property, not an individual, so the question about the record is even more difficult.
So you were saying like
Yeah.
grandfathered in?
you could be 3 owners past from
Yeah.
1973, you're not gonna have records if you didn't own the property before.
And
1973.
one can question if 1973 is the correct date.
And absolutely, the term short-term rental did not exist in nineteen seventy-three.
That's
I
correct.
mean, you could, that doesn't even go past the millennium.
Change the rentals since 1980
Mhm.
and, it wasn't called that back.
Right,
1980.
But uses like what you've been referencing don't necessarily pass on with the property when the property, necessarily pass on with the property when the property is sold.
Legal non-conforming is
Well.
a
it doesn't have to
legal
be-
lot that is no longer, would be allowed, like you wouldn't be allowed to split it now.
Let me finish. So like if it was tacked on, is one way to extend something like that, which would be the same in adverse possession. It needs to be tacked on and passed on to the deed when it's sold. Now, if you're talking about a property that hasn't been sold all this time, and it's been used that way, that's one thing. But if it has been, then that changes that use, that may have been, considered, hey, it's been going on all this time. It doesn't necessarily grandfather it in, unless it's tacked on in the deed when it's sold.
Is that
Unless
something
there's a
that would be on the title
reservation.
insurance?
It would show up in title, it's tacked on, because, you see, I don't mean to get into the whole, I know this is complex as it is, but like for adverse possession, it could be established but not enforced yet, and people can sell that property saying, I own, my fence goes out to here. And to sell the property, but if that wasn't tacked on to the deed, that 15-year requirement starts all over. The tag, so it has to be tacked on and sold that way for the next person to.
it's sort of like an easement or
Yeah.
something on that, or to be written right in the description of the property.
By tacking it on, the next person that owns the property can pursue it and retain that existing situation.
I've got to believe that not very many of those would exist as far as the Airbnb terminology.
Right.
Not gonna be there, so that's gonna make it very difficult for someone to prove that that has been going on, unless they've been the owner continuously back to that point.
But they were referencing, non-conforming uses.
Or your building permit could show
Mhm.
when the house was.
But I have other things when we have, unless somebody else has anything about these minimum 5-day rental periods, that I could talk about that when we have a chance. When we're done with our existing subject.
Well, and again, I'm just pointing out things that I have concerns about, that's, I don't know how, when someone says, okay, well, I've been doing this, well, how do we prove that? That's my question. Just something I'm bringing up.
To prove it.
That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a place that we can see a copy of this ordinance?
Yeah, it's online.
You can,
That would be wonderful. Because the copy I saw online didn't have some of the things you're talking about.
I don't think the path is clear online as to where to find that. It would be helpful if you could disclose what the path would be.
Thank you.
It was not easy.
and this right here is currently, what we have currently in the township.
How was this determined?
It is I
Call
think,
program?
yeah, that they've listed it, so it's an estimate or a raw estimate
Okay.
of what is already existing in our township. And it kind of shows the map area of where that's at. So for me, I mean, I'm not opposed to short-term rentals. My only protection would be, you know, that they're in, you know, residential area, especially if the short-term rental also comes with the recreational stuff. I mean, I live, you know, in an area, I have 80 acres, but the people next to us, you know, starting, you know, Memorial Day, they have, recreational area where we have mud bogs and running engines and things like that, you know, all night stuff. I mean, I would imagine a lot of people in residential areas would like some type of protection so that they can, you know, enjoy, you know, some decent light or limited amount of time that you have to exposed to that in the residential. Yeah, go ahead.
You don't know how to enforce it. You charge
Enforcement-
$500 up front to use the Airbnb with a short-term rental. You don't know how to enforce it. This has been going on the Jersey Shore, up and down the Atlantic coast. Find neighborhoods all over the place, want to keep the sanctity because they don't want some troublemaker renting to a troublemaker. The person who lives behind my house is sweet as can be, she's a meth head. There's a meth head at Freedom Park. There's a meth head renting that red building in Teresa owns. We can't even keep the sanctity of our community. You know how I do? I know all of them. Dan and these people on Torch Lake have never gone to these troublemakers blowing off fireworks. It's non-existent. I've talked to the sheriff, I've talked to the Alcastre cops. They're not showing up for any serious violations. Septic tanks need to be cleaned, I get that. Environmental issues on it, I get that. I could rent my house to somebody for 31 days. That's how they get away with it. And if that person stays a week and leaves, there's nothing that requires me to go through an eviction process or penalizing those people anyway for breaking the lease. They do it deliberately. Professional Airbnb people, when they come in with their money, they know how to get around all of this nonsense. Residential, you don't live in a residence. Jim does, I do, we live right here in town. I can't stop them all on across the street from burning fires all the time, burning plastic, laying in my bed at night with my windows open in the fall, smelling this guy's plastic over and over. Behind me, down the road, there's a junkyard over there on my Harrison Street. There's a guy renting trailers. He goes to court and tells the judge, well, these are friends of mine, they're homeless. So they have a sympathetic approach to that. Pretty rare in northern Michigan, pretty rare in the red district. They know how to beat you every way. So I don't know how much time and money you want to give to a lawyer to craft stomping on the most fundamental rights that we have. Home ownership and the pursuit of happiness. I may never rent short term, I may never have to. But my daughter, my son, whatever you need to keep it in the family. There's not enough problems. One lady, oh, they came in my yard and took my firewood. I don't even know if I believe her. There's no reports. The sheriff said it's basically non-existent, the crimes that are being committed that would violate an ordinance. And I know you can't just let everybody do what they want. But that one fact, that's how they did it in the Hamptons, that's how they did it in Montauk, all the way up and down in the most exclusive neighborhoods. I will rent for 31 days and you leave after a week and there's no penalty.
And currently, the ordinance states no short-term rentals in Clearwater Township.
Where does it say that?
Well, our ordinance is a permissive ordinance, so it doesn't permit them. So therefore.
Where does it say that? No, I get that.
It doesn't permit.
I can just real quick Google Michigan, like most ordinances in Michigan are not permissive. In Pennsylvania, they are, not in Michigan. So I think that misinformed.
And we've had amendments and due process within our own governing township laws that show that it's not a permissive ordinance. We have language within our ordinance that shows it's not a permissive ordinance.
Zoning matters.
It would be like saying you can't have internet because the ordinance doesn't allow it. It didn't exist when the ordinance was created. So that's something that just has not kept up with the times, and that has not been court tested. And it's
So-
likely to come out favorable.
So how do we change that? What do we do? Where's the thing?
I think you're a long way from wasting your money with this attorney. There's been people doing this for a long, long time. And you're not reaching out to them. The work that I have to do, I don't know if they've done it, I don't know if he's done it. You could be, how to be smarter than your lawyer? AI. Type it. You'll see, there's organizations in Michigan that go around to all of these meetings, and it's the same thing. That blow fireworks, revving their car engines up off. That ordinance is quite restrictive. It says you can't have an RV in the driveway if you rent to somebody short term. So you come up with your snowmobiles, or you come up with your boat, they're gonna tell you you can't put it to drive. You can't have your little kids in the backyard in a tent having a little picnic. I want people with money. I want people with money around me. I'm not worried about the sanctity of my community. I'm not afraid of my community. Some little old lady living on Torch Lake might get real pissed off about some fireworks every now and then. I just think it's too in its infancy. I think they're just pecking away to see what's cool. Let's give them a couple of weeks a year to pacify them, a couple weeks a year. If I have to short-term rent to make the money, it's because I don't want to get involved with somebody renting a year long from me, that I have to evict, that I have to go. They're very well vetted. Airbnb is very well vetted. They're not a bunch of bums and hooligans. These people are renting their houses for $5,000 a week. You think you're gonna stimulate that person by stopping that they're gonna increase housing by renting long-term?
Okay.
No way.
Right.
These people are gonna shut down. You're stepping on people's rights when you're not prepared to. You gotta really do your diligence before you start stepping up into an arena like that. That's my feeling.
We haven't passed it yet.
I know.
All right,
Don't.
that's why we're in the
Do your
discussion.
homework.
We're in discussion in that right now, and I thank you
Don't worry.
for the input.
You can't enforce something, you can't be charging people.
Michelle, quickly, and then we're gonna try
I
to.
really think, short-term rentals, I don't have a problem with them if per se there's some control. Over the years, we've just seen big business get in on this. The Michigan Realtors Association is pushing for no zoning in any area. And I think when somebody bought a place here, a realtor probably said, they probably asked, do you allow short-term rentals? Well, yeah, we do. Zoning was the whole issue that we should have stuck with, because you're not supposed to have commercial business in your R1 areas. And I think it just got out of control in the last 5 to 10 years. So if we could just reel some of it in, maybe we can get some calm back in our neighborhoods. And Frank, you're welcome to sit at the end of my driveway any summer night and listen to the fireworks at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just.
I have them in front of mine, and I live right here.
I think we can all agree that it's a few people that are abusing the sanctity of our neighborhoods. It's not everybody. There are people that manage things very well and, appreciate the sanctity of the neighborhoods, few neighborhoods that we still do have. But that's not the case everywhere, and I think we do need some protection to some degree. I don't know that sweet spot exactly, but we have to start somewhere. We have to, at least acknowledge that there is, some areas where this is a problem.
That's a good point, John, but are they all short-term rentals or are they?
There you go. There you go. We have places all over the township
Is
that
that
are
a
not.
short-term rental ordinance that we need to govern that problem, or is that our ordinances that we need to enforce? Do we need an enforceable noise ordinance? Do we need, if there's a trash issue, do we need, those types of things?
I have a next door neighbor, I would absolutely love to change once a week. I mean, all welcome to them. That would be a dream. But you asked, how do you correct this? Without an ordinance? It's not about how many you have in the township,
Mhm.
It's not about where they're located. It's about basic common courtesy guidelines. And that's something a lot of the businesses, the attorneys
Mhm.
are pushing, limit the number, limit the distance, have to be 1,000 feet from another one. That really isn't the problem. It's trash flying around, parking in the road, loud at night,
Septic.
fireworks. And
Septic.
those are rules that you can put on every property owner everywhere and police equally for everyone without even addressing the short-term rental ordinance issue.
Mhm.
You can add a couple of things like having some occupancy limits and even having a license, but there's no reason it has to be limited. There's so much you can do to eliminate 95% of the problems without restricting people's ability to survive.
We have other concerns. And I know I hear this a lot, septic, okay, we have, you know, we get one chance to protect that lake at some point. You know, we'll be like,
Bedroom is a standard thing.
Yep.
But you know, so some of those guidelines that you referenced
unfortunately,
here,
I can't go around and
Can
go
be
in
done.
people's bedrooms and say, oh, there's 3 in there, I can't have that, you know, I mean, there's no. How do you get in people's bedrooms to enforce stuff?
because when you have 20 people coming into a house for a week, your next door neighbor's gonna tell you. And that's not a hard thing
Some
to
will.
reference. And
We don't wanna go
clarify.
into neighbors against neighbors. We have to come up with something that keeps our neighborhoods calm and friendly.
No, but if you try to say it's illegal in all residential properties, period, or you can only get 2 weeks.
I just read the ordinance that they have posted online, and there's nothing on there that says any type of limit, like how much you can do it.
Section 504, section 504, ma'am. Also, I don't know if anybody's, oh. I see, in the chat there, Christine has, updated where you can find that ordinance online. I'm gonna take this last version of the ordinance and I'll put it on the public notices page, make it a little more accessible for everybody.
Can I make one comment? My name is Liz Ross.
Sure,
Has
go
the-
right ahead.
Has the board considered any kind of institution of charging any kind of taxes that would go towards our county and upkeep during peak times of year where there's a lot of people that may be renting that, you know, kind of plays havoc with our roadways and things like that, and the landowners bear the majority of the financial responsibility?
The only thing that I see there is we have to identify who is, you know, actually doing that. I mean.
Well, wouldn't that go along with the people who are applying for the short-term rental applications?
Yes,
That there
but-
would be some sort of a tax that would be assessed to them at that time, like other townships already currently do?
Like, similar to a hotel tax type thing, yes.
Correct, yes.
Mhm.
Have we considered that? That's all.
Yes, it has been considered. I know they've talked about it in the planning commission quite extensively. I personally think that's a, you know, fairly good idea for financing a way to enforce. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Anybody have any comments they wanna add on the board here? I know we've kind of opened it up a little bit for the public here, but.
Well, I'm just curious, how many people have short-term rentals, they use like property management companies to handle their short-term rentals?
And what would be the difference there?
I'm just curious, because I would think that a lot of the property management groups probably screening people coming in and renting, and then they usually groups that then come in afterwards. Maybe you might see them in bigger areas, maybe like Traverse City than our area. I was just curious.
There's VRBO, there's Airbnb, there's RPO. I mean, there's so many platforms that you can go to. We didn't.
You're never gonna get as good a screening as the property owner who's had that house or cottage in the house in the family for 60 years. That's your best
They're
screening.
absentee owners. Some people live in Florida and they hire people, and that's a great way, you know, you gotta know that.
But they're never gonna care as much as the person who owns it, that's a family property and they wanna keep it in the family.
So,
So it's not that if you have a professional, they're doing a better job. It really depends on the individual, but
convenient.
simple guidelines, like must have a property manager that is available for contact 24 hours a day within
That's
30
in-
minutes of the property.
That's in here.
That's a very simple thing.
I don't know if anybody's read section 6 or article 6, enforcement. 3 little paragraphs. All of these will require I have to imagine anyway, almost a full-time person. Not to mention, we don't really have any like police authority. This is obviously an ordinance, but to enforce it, we need some type of a enforcement officer or administrator or something like that. So I don't see a provision for that in here. I see that person referenced many times to be enforced by, you know, the township, but I don't see.
I think in the planning commission meetings, what they had talked about was that the license fees
Mhm.
that people were paying would go towards the person that they choose to enforce it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if Mr. West, the zoning, would.
Well, right now, he would be the only person that we would have to enforce something, and he would be enforcing zoning. I was speaking more to the problems like fireworks, for
Oh,
example.
yeah.
Okay, we pick up the phone and they're not gonna probably come for
Yeah.
someone that, you know, set fireworks off 15 minutes ago or whatever, you know.
On a
So-
more practical note,
Mhm.
if it's really tied to losing your license,
Mhm.
that's a lot more realistic for a township of this size. If you've had 3 documented violations within the year,
Mhm.
you can't renew your license next year.
Mhm.
That way you're not running out there all times of the day, you're not trying to prove as much. There is a procedure for review,
Mhm.
but
Yep, that's in here too.
it makes it more realistic.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for your opinions and honesty and stuff like that. I feel like, we need to do something. I don't know exactly what that might be. I'm thinking this is maybe a framework. I don't know that I'm ready to, and I know we've been working on this for years now, but I don't know that I'm ready to send it to legal yet. I think that we have more questions than answers. You know, I appreciate it. I know this is hard work to get this all on paper and discuss it and have public hearings and literally years of, you know, hashing this over.
I do have to say, this is the cleanest, best copy that I've seen so far.
It is,
It really is very well written and organized.
I think so, but yet there are still questions.
Still
and
questions, yeah.
still, things.
Yeah.
Maybe the
I think-
lawyer can clean this up for us, and maybe, you know, maybe that's something that we should consider. I don't know, I'm not quite there yet. As
Jim,
far as-
can I say something?
Sure,
In
Doug,
2000, in 2015 and 2016, they dealt with the same issues. And the township board at the time and the planning commission at the time researched it and found that the tourists coming to the area is a very important part of the community. And I said early on this year, I've heard lots of complaints from neighbors and other people in the community. I don't think that this is targeting some of the problems or what a lot of people see, whether it's the parking and the chaos in Crystal Beach, the parking on Shellway, a lot of the hoopla that's going on. I don't think that the short-term rental is going to solve any of those problems. And then in addition to that, you're working with adding additional campsites to the community, which I can understand everybody wants to come up there. It's gorgeous. But the attraction that people are coming up there is to go to Torch Lake. So if you think by eliminating short-term rentals is going to stop a lot of this hoopla that's going on, is crazy. But then add additional campsites where the people that are going to the campsites are going to be going there. In addition to that, you have homes that have been built in this community, additions that have been added to homes based upon that 2015 Planning Commission, that people actually put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a property based upon the fact that the township board acknowledged that they were using them as short-term rentals. Now, all of a sudden, somebody has $200,000 into a house that's useless because you don't need some of that stuff on there. I have a property that was built in 1996 as a duplex. Never, ever, ever occupied by the owner. It's always been rented. Now, I'm not renting it, but at the same time, the township structured it for me to rent it. Now you want to take that away from me and affects my property values. Now, in the community where I am, the abuse that I see are the owners, and I'm talking third and fourth generation owners. I have a neighbor next door that's shooting fireworks off at 2:00 in the morning. I heard somebody down the street blamed it on the renters that were next door. It wasn't the renters next door. It was somebody else. So if you're going to have complaints regarding fireworks, you can't tell where they're coming from. You're guessing. So somebody that's going to get 1, 2, or 3 complaints, you're not targeting the situation. You're not targeting what most people's complaints are. I understand that there are short-term renters. I mean, I've seen it on Vrbo, I've seen it on Airbnb, that they've got a 2-bedroom and they're sleeping 9 people or 12 people. That's stupid. That's where it should be monitored. And if somebody is advertising a place for 9 bedrooms or 9 people in a 2-bedroom, they should automatically get a fine for that. And they should be restricted from doing something. But it's also the owners that have been there for generation after generation. And I very much appreciate what the board is doing and very much appreciate what the Planning Commission has done to get to this point. But never once have I seen somebody actually target the major issues that people have been complaining about along Crystal Beach and Shellway. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that, Doug. I would just say, and I think I've been present for the whole meeting. I don't think I've heard anyone call for the total elimination of Airbnbs. So I just wanted to.
Well, I agree with you, but at the same time, the restrictions that you're putting on on my property, okay, if I can only rent for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or 6 weeks, okay, in order for me to recoup dollar-wise, whatever else, okay, it'd be ridiculous. I mean, there should be no restrictions regarding anything as far as any weeks. You should have restrictions that makes good host so that these problems don't happen. Doing something as far as the amount of weeks, I think you're really intruding on people's rights. I think that you're opening yourself up for lawsuits that you have just no idea. And if you're not enforcing any of the other rules, okay, why are you going to go after and make it so many weeks? Okay, you can be disrupted for 4 weeks of the year. The rest of the year, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. But any limitation on weeks, I think that you're really infringing upon people's property rights. I think that you're overstepping your bounds, and it's more do the regulation, do what you have as far as enforcement, and do what you can target. If somebody's got 2 bedrooms and they're renting out for 12 or 14 people, that's a problem. Go after that.
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna go after?
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
So,
You know, I wanted to comment,
Yeah.
I sided with Doug on a lot, you know, I've been here 16 years, I live off Crystal Beach Road, and a lot of the people shooting off fireworks are local owners with their families, that these properties have been in the families for, with the families for decades. And he made a lot of good points about, and so a lot of people, about some of the things that need to be enforced really have nothing to do with short-term rentals. It's behavior, it's, you know, what time to stop, things of that nature. And Doug also made some good points about, you just can't take people's, you know, invested their property value. They've invested in these properties with the, and held on to them with the intent of having some value in renting them perhaps. And when you start to place rules that are too excessive, especially for things that could be enforced other ways, okay? You don't wanna go there. And we don't wanna go there. It's my opinion. Okay, just like our neighbors to the north, the Clearwater Township is used by right, I believe you referred to.
Yes, sir.
It's a very valuable point. Think about that. So if there's people that are, you know, harassing their neighbors, or they're up at 2 a.m. shooting off fireworks, I've just become used to it. And it's not short-term rental people that are doing it.
certainly
Like I
not
said,
all cases.
not where I'm located. But at the same time, you know, Michelle, I had read her email here, she brings up a lot of valid points. The other way, but at the same time, I think most of what you have brought up here, can be dealt with in other ways.
Well, how about on the other side of it is, this gentleman may have invested $200,000 in his home. I've invested my whole life up here in my R1 residence. So I have a short-term rental on both sides of me. What happens to my property value? Who's gonna pay my taxes?
Yeah.
So you know, it goes both ways.
It does. I live in a R1 subdivision, and there's like 6 short-term rentals in there that I'm aware of now.
Yeah. It's a
And-
big cash business. That's why people get so angry.
And one of them, there was at least 20 people there, you know, so I'm sure that they rented, saying it was gonna be 6 of us, or
Right.
if it was 8, and then their friends came, but their friends were there the next morning. So that's more of a subject change, but they behaved, they weren't, you know, so. Then the septic thing comes into play, because a lot of people don't understand septic systems, they come from downstate. They have sewer systems, and you just can't overload a system. So there's a lot of things, but I'm leaning more towards the property owner at this point and their rights. And not having the rug pulled out from under them, and us not getting lawsuits. Because of that, their properties were worth something up until, like, if we pass a lot of what I see here. That's gonna damage them and reduce their property value and their options and their rights. So we gotta be very careful with that.
For $1 million.
Pardon me?
They could still sell their house on Torch for $1 million if they couldn't rent it out anymore. That's my personal opinion.
But family properties, you don't wanna sell. And the reality is,
You're one of the responsible ones. You're not a corporation. You don't own 6 of them. You know, I mean, there's people that I know that own more than one, they're a corporation, and I think those things should be looked at too. We're not just talking about trying to save the family home, we're talking about big business. This is.
How much big business is here?
so you regulate the behavior. You can't regulate ownership. If you, I heard you mention restricting it to 1 per person. Okay, then I will own 6, not me personally, but so an individual just decides to own 6 LLCs. You can't restrict that. It becomes 6 entities, and legally, there's no way you can restrict how many properties a given person
Kind
can
of goes
have.
back to what Frank said, you can
Back
always
to
get
me.
around it if you really wanna get around it.
Probation. When you can't enforce. If alcohol prohibition isn't the clearest message. they were prohibited and the gangsters came in. And if you wanna call corporations or wealthy companies gangsters, they know how to get around, they know how to sue you, they could simply bury you in debt because you don't have the money to fight them.
Mhm.
Two of the men in this town are related to somebody that we all know is a troublemaker. And his mother owns properties here. We can't get two men and a mother to stop their son from being I won't say he's a menace, but other people do.
Hmm.
Having the Heritage Festival 90 miles an hour right up in town. We know who he is.
Mhm.
Are you gonna come? And you come, we'll go knock on his door and say, yo, this shit's gotta stop. There's a lot for self-policing. And that's what the state troopers told me when I met with them about the Airbnb. He says, you gotta police it by neighbors. 90% of it is people that come here, they might not even be renting. I don't think there's that many corporations coming in with the big money yet.
So we're
When
basically
Torchlight
just getting rid of
becomes the-
zoning.
What's that?
We're basically just getting rid of zoning then,
Well,
not having any zoning in Clearwater Township, if we're gonna allow anybody to be a short-term
But
rental.
that's a residential use in a residential area. There's still a family living there. The fact that the family changes on a weekly basis is still a family living in a home.
I think where we're lacking is enforcement of basic
If you take
law
stuff,
stuff, you know.
you gotta be able to enforce it. Right now in the Supreme Court of Tennessee, there's an Airbnb thing, and just what you just said. The definition, the fine definition of residential could be misinterpreted, could be flipped one way. The same man that can debate the pro of it can debate the con of it. So I think we're really in our infancy. I don't think the problems really exist as much as they say they do. But I'm not gonna call her a liar. If her neighbor is a pain in the ass and he's doing things that shouldn't be done. Environmentally, yes, you have to have clean septic, septics that can't be overloaded, all that stuff. It's a long road to just be handing lawyers and Dan and a couple of guys to try to, whether their intentions are the best of intentions or just because I want to keep the sanctity of my little cove over there, he lives in a Bible, Christ's sake.
Jim, could I say something? This is
Very
Jenny.
quick. Sure.
This is Jenny. I'm on Zoom.
Yeah,
I just
hey,
wanted,
Jean.
hi, I just wanted to say that I agree with Doug and what David said. My concern, as you guys know, because I wrote you an email in September, it's the lack of police presence, the enforcement of the ordinances. That's what scares me because I'm a homeowner in a R1 on Crystal Beach and it's chaos here. And I know I'm not the only one that has seen this, but my situation was actually with a homeowner, not a renter. And I was never bothered by the short-term renters before because my other neighbor on directly next to me does the short-term rental. I have not had problems. And if I did, I contacted the homeowner and he addressed it. But it was the homeowner this past September that got under my skin. And when I called for help, I was told, sorry, we don't enforce the ordinances for noise. And that in turn to me sparks problems because that could have easily erupted into something very ugly. And I was dealing with an extremely drunk man who was, and the lady even could hear that because I called the non-emergency number. And she told me just to get away from him because she could tell he was highly intoxicated. Too bad he didn't get pulled over in the sandbar. But anyway, I just think that we have to consider that as well for the safety of your residents like me. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
We've got about maybe 15-20 minutes left. I'm gonna ask maybe the public just kind of hold off for a minute. There is a spot down here where we'll have some more public comment, but I just want the board to discuss what we've heard and seen today. I'm ready to listen to all kinds of angles of how we get some type of enforcement, whether we approve, funding the sheriff's department again for a reasonable amount of hours, or we find our own constable or enforcement
Well, I'm here
system, but
because
I think but just one second, throughout the whole township, we have this problem of pretty much non-enforcement. I mean, we've got no legal clout, yeah. So we need to find that and go after some of these things. I mean,
Well, I just said the question, so my understanding is that what we paid for the sheriff's department to come in was road patrol, correct?
$46 an hour is what they want. And
But I mean.
road
we paid
patrol
for them
means,
before. We
yes.
paid for an additional 10
yes,
hours.
those would be additional hours that we would,
be road patrol.
yes.
So would those be traffic infractions?
It would
and
be
things like
anything,
those?
including our ordinances. And I know, we don't have a lot of control when we go through the sheriff's department, we say, okay, we're gonna get 10 hours a week or whatever, and we don't know what those 10 hours, when they're here, when they're not here. So we have very little control with that. My own personal observation is that a constable is an elected official. All we have to do is determine whether or not we want a constable, and we can put it on the ballot. If somebody runs, we'll have a constable. We have to, back him up. He'll require things, and, it's not free, but neither is the sheriff either.
Mhm.
So I think it's reasonable to think that maybe Clearwater Township is at the point where we either need to bite the bullet, pay the sheriff and get some hours here of patrol time to stop some of these issues, or create our own policing. Other townships do it. Garfield does it. Jerry Cannon's a constable down there. I mean, it does exist. And I think we need something. And again, I'm not opposed to the sheriff in the meantime. It might take us a year to get a constable position up and running in any kind of sensible fashion or whatever. Well, I can't wait another year without having any police.
And I think
So-
I've asked in the past, I mean, how do other townships? Because
Well-
when I looked it up, there were 2 townships that paid the sheriff's department for the extra road
It
patrols.
varies.
So you just answered the $64,000 question. Some of them have constables.
Yes, they
Like
do.
there's one that has Jerry Cannon's the constable. He enforces the ordinance and the law and things. I
Yeah,
mean, I've asked
It
that in
doesn't-
the past, like how do the other townships? There's a lot of townships in Kalkaska County, and the only 2 that I had seen was Blue Lake Township and Clearwater Township paid for the additional
Mhm.
road
It
patrol.
varies.
And
It
then
changes all the
Clearwater
time, yeah.
doesn't now, so it would have been only Blue Lake Township.
I would be a no vote on a constable situation. There's a lot more involved than just having a township official.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd have to
Because-
upload them in there, or,
Okay, I think we need to negotiate more with the sheriff on the specific, what we need done and what areas we need it done.
Mhm.
Because they have the power of arresting drunk and disorderly and,
Mhm.
situations like that.
Sure.
We couldn't house with a constable, we couldn't house that. They don't want, the sheriff's department doesn't want to assist us with our constable and doing those type of things.
Well, actually, they would still be required to come to the township. We're not losing the sheriff's department by gaining a constable. That constable is a radio that's
Yeah.
connected to the sheriff's department, and if he needs them.
I just don't, I think we'd be opening up a can of worms with the constable situation. And that was voted on before, and the people voted it down. Now, of course, it could be put on the ballot again, we can see what happens, but I would rather increase our hours with the sheriff than have a more specific negotiation with them. As to where the areas are, related to the short-term rentals or the, trying to govern, to have a character in the neighborhoods. I understand those points, I understand your points. But, property owners, I understand their rights as well. So I don't think constable is the answer, sorry to be redundant.
Mhm.
I think the sheriff's department and, maybe rules as far as fireworks times and things of that nature.
We have that already.
Okay, so then we gotta find a way to enforce it. I don't think short-term rental and telling people how many days they can rent their property is the answer.
Jim, this is Teresa. Can I talk as the on the safety committee about the sheriff?
Sure.
Okay, well, the safety committee did evaluate that and it was voted down. There's some things to look at about a constable. It will cost you more than contracting with the sheriff because you have to supply them with all the supplies, the car, the oversight. You have to have somebody that does the compliance work where all of that comes with the sheriff. The other thing, an elected official can tend to be biased, where the person that gets elected has their own, I should say, cronies that kind of back them up. And we have seen that happen in the past in other townships. So to me, hiring the sheriff, to me is a better option. The other thing is the sheriff, when he was here, he did a good job. I observed he helped me personally with things and also we kind of had control somewhat of whatever you want to call them, the ones that run this town, the hoodlums or whatever, because they didn't know when he was going to be there. And, so that's my opinion after assessing it and talking to other townships that have done it, and that you're talking about 150K a year at the minimum because of all the equipment and everything, and you have to have an office space. So that's just what we had assessed at that time.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank
I
you,
would,
Teresa.
I would just mention too, and I don't have all these numbers and that, but a constable does also generate some income with fines and different things like that too. So there is a little offset. And I agree, it's a lot of money up front to get it up and running. It's not something that we can just pull out of a hat somewhere and expect to have it, operational. It would be a process, and it wouldn't be, done in a few weeks or something. That's literally a years-long process to get that up and running.
But we can generate money with fines through zoning.
We can do that, and I think parking is another one. I know, but we have to have somebody that can write the ticket, but when it's the sheriff that writes the ticket, we don't get the money.
Okay,
So
but we can have it both ways. We can negotiate with the sheriff, which we all seem to be in agreement with.
Well, they're union, so there's not a lot of negotiation that hasn't already taken place. They have a contract with the sheriff's department, so the sheriff's department has to honor what's in the contract as far as their deputies. So there's some things to look at.
Okay, I think it's worth a talk with Sheriff Whiteford and
Yeah,
say, hey,
we've had the conversation quite a few times. He's always sending me, are we ready to start doing this yet?
But more specific to what we've been talking about tonight,
We mean,
as far as the noise, the fireworks, property owners that are they feel they're being violated by.
yeah, they still hear the complaints up there, but they're not necessarily responding to everything. In fact, I would say most things they don't respond to. It's gotta be pretty serious before they're gonna come out here.
I
That's
just
what-
think there's a
that's what I
way.
was gonna ask, so I've, heard a lot of people voice
Mhm.
not having, like we had the deputy that was here that we paid for the extra road hours. But now people are saying, when I call the sheriff's department, they're not coming out. Or,
They
some
laugh.
people say, we'll call the Michigan State Police because they will come out.
Yeah.
So again,
All
it's
the way
almost
from
like if we contract with them, they'll come out. But they won't come out if we don't contract with them.
If we contract with them, their presence will be more.
Will be the extra 10 hours.
The extra, whatever we decide.
Cause it was 10 hours before.
It was
correct?
10 hours before. I
It
think it
is
was like
the
$22,000 or something like that, which isn't a
But
huge
it's not a
amount, but
lot.
it's only 10 hours a week too.
Yeah, was it 10 hours a week or 10
Yes.
hours?
10 hours a week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Any comments you'd like to make?
just, we did an experiment where we had them under contract and then we went a year without the contract and there really was no difference in the community with or without the contract. The people that are gonna do the stuff are still gonna do the stuff, whether you have a sheriff's contract or not. And they do listen to scanners, so they do know when the sheriff is around
I agree.
or when he's coming.
Okay, so that's
The
true.
only
That's
difference
true.
that I've noticed now is that people say now when they call and complain to the sheriff's department, the sheriff's department will not come out. They'll say, oh, that's enforced by,
Mhm.
the township and their ordinances. They're stating they won't come out. But when we had a contract,
They
if
will.
they called them,
Yep.
they would come out.
And maybe this is something we can negotiate, like, okay, we're gonna hire you for 15 hours a week. And 5 of those, you're gonna be working with our zoning administrator and, going after these zoning issues that we have.
When you look at the cost, estimates that Teresa Sherman, mentioned about if we did have a constable. And what we were paying when what was it, 10 hours a week?
10 hours a week,
And that was costing us
22,000, I think it was a year, something like
a
that.
year.
26.
Okay, so if we up that, and if we could get to be more specific to what we need, because.
That's just it, but they won't allow us to control when they are.
Right, but I mean, but we can try, we can just see what his response is, this is what we need, what you gotta say in that. Now, and Christine, what you said is right, not much has changed, but I did notice a difference in their presence. I mean, we would have a deputy at our meetings.
Oh, yeah.
I would see them more like sitting at an intersection. And since we haven't paid the money, I hardly ever see one. So the presence would be more. So we might have to pay more, but we'd be paying a lot less.
That's definitely a question that's gonna have to come up when we start our budget.
Yes.
Because we have to see if we can fit it in the budget.
Right, that too, of course.
Yeah.
But it'll be a lot less than a constable.
And I think when we talked to them before that, stuff, they were looking more at, traffic, monitoring traffic, and getting speeding, and getting contraptions that would track, like people, how fast they were going and things like that. So if we're just looking at traffic violations versus things that people are talking about that are happening in their community. I mean, those are two different things. We're just looking at extra, road patrol, looking at traffic infractions and traffic violations. That's different than having policing for things that, in my opinion, police should already come.
I agree.
They should already come to those aids of the people in the community, regardless of whether they have a contract or they don't have a contract.
I have heard that as much as 1/3 of the county's revenue is sent to the sheriff's department for their operations. So they're already getting a pretty fair amount of money. They should be, and Clearwater Township provides the county with about 15% of their revenue. So, we should be included somewhere in there with some road patrol and decent, law enforcement.
I just think
don't
that
get
if people call the police when they're to that point where they feel like they have to call the police and the police department tells them,
No.
oh, no, we don't enforce that, the township enforces that.
Well, Jim
That's
made a valid point about if we have the sheriff's department working with zoning and enforcing some of the things where there's fines, okay? Because if we can generate some money with the fines, then that will help offset the costs of the extra sheriff department and be involved.
But are we gonna get the sheriff's department to come in and work with zoning and
They will,
enforce
yes,
just ordinances?
They will enforce our ordinances when we hire them, yes.
No, he won't.
Well, I think.
Talk to him again, he said, I won't.
Down to
Well,
3 minutes.
the thing is,
While we don't have them under contract, they
So we're not under
will,
contract.
with contractor.
and they haven't had the money in a while.
My neighbor's being loud. Well, ma'am, I have something better to do right now.
I think he'd be really willing to work with us to get us paying again.
Okay, go for it.
As far as the ordinance,
Yeah,
I think, limitations are something we definitely have to consider. And I don't think sending it to the attorney is gonna hinder that at all. At any point, we can change those limitations. Questions on enforcement, we're not gonna be able to answer those until we start enforcing. So I would say it's ready to go to the attorney, and then we can still talk about and have public hearing to talk about what the limitations are and what everybody wants to say about it, the pros and cons.
Well, we would put it on the ballot. Would we be putting it on the ballot since we?
well,
voted
that's something we have to determine. That's something we have to determine. Obviously, if we pass this and we say, okay, this is now gonna be the thing, then we're gonna be responsible. Right.
Where if it's up to the vote, it's the voice of the people. Majority is gonna rule.
I'd like to talk about 504, if you. Got nothing about whatever you want to talk about before we get too far away from that.
504.
It's specific to a calendar year. I think it should be more of a June, July, August type thing, instead of the whole year. Because the most, you know, if we were gonna go with something like this, first of all, okay. That's the time, that's summer, that's when, Torch Lake is booming and things are happening. When the kids go back to school, it's too restrictive to someone that runs their property. Let me just say that. It shouldn't say calendar year, it would be more of a 4-month period.
So let's say Thanksgiving weekend, you wanna rent, that would fall outside of that period you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah, so
Or
I mean,
Christmas.
for June, July, August, maybe September, let's call it a 4-month period. I can see this, right? As far as a minimum of 5 days, that's too restrictive. Because that only gives, if you're going with 4 weeks or 28 days, 5 days, if someone rented it for 5 days, they would get 5 rentals for a year, the way it's written right now.
Okay. If they were renting for 5 days.
If it was a minimum of 5 days. Now, if it was a minimum of 3 days, they would get 9 rentals during that period. If it was 4 days, they get 7. If it was, of course, 7 days, they only get 4. But it's just too restrictive to say a minimum rental period of 5 days. So I'm against the calendar year being in there. I'm against the minimum of 5 days. And I'd like to hear what the rest of the board has to say about that.
I'm not quite sure what C is there either, where it says 12 occupants total. What if you had 9 bedrooms?
True. That as well, but I thought I'd start with that.
Well, I thought the same thing myself, pretty much the whole time that I've been looking at this ordinance, I always thought that's way too restrictive. I mean, it is overreach a little, you know? We're trying to tell people what they can do, but it is in R1. And again, that is not supposed to have short-term rentals, but we're allowing it, we're making it permissible. So why 4 weeks or 28 days? We're gonna let you do it, but you can only do it for this amount of time.
Can I ask a question? What are other adjacent townships doing? And have we researched what their short-term rental ordinances are? Wouldn't it be wise, instead of trying to recreate the wheel, to be somewhat mirroring our adjacent communities?
Well, Helena Township is used by right.
Anywhere in the township, in Helena Township, you can do it, and Milton Township has pretty much a ban, or they're working towards a ban on them. As far as I know, they're,
I think ours, the village was very similar to Blue Lake Township, I think, this is very similar to that.
So
Yeah.
an answer, yes, we are looking at other townships.
Yeah, this ordinance was actually pulled together from looking at several other ordinances in the area too, as well as Spring Lake and several other
Yeah. I looked at
locations.
Charlotte.
Yeah. Um, So I guess then, is there any support to send it to legal before? We do any more research here, or is this? I'm assuming these little add-on things that were mentioned in that we're gonna be seeking consult from
Well,
them
I
as
think the
to.
whole thing, seeking consult.
Mhm.
I mean, we're a board, we're
Mhm.
not,
Sure.
aficionados in short-term rentals, to be
Right.
perfectly honest.
Right.
Sure.
So I mean, we would be just seeking advice. And again, I think that, we need a lot more community input on this subject. I mean, whether it is, something that the attorney looks at and reviews and go, okay, we're a body of five, are we really going to?
No, there will be a public hearing.
Yeah, and
There has
is
been
it gonna be
many.
something that's gonna be put to a vote by the people in the community? I mean, I just think getting legal advice isn't a problem. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a bad thing. It doesn't mean if an attorney looks at it and gives us the pros and cons of, short-term rental means that we're gonna pass it or we're not gonna pass it. I mean, we're just looking at an attorney to look at it and advise us.
He's gonna look at the language, see, like, are your definitions good? Is this going to be enforceable?
Mhm.
Can we defend it?
Yeah, and enforcement is an issue.
Yeah, I don't think we have that figured out. It obviously, and I'm wondering if we should send this to the attorneys before having the interaction with the public.
Well, there has been a lot of interaction. with the
There's
public.
been,
There's been a
like,
multitude of.
Okay, I know that.
That's where we got all this from, is all
Okay,
the many meetings that have been included the public.
so if we have a meeting with the public and they have something, they have copies of this as well, okay? And if we even modify what we have here, there seems to be some support with what I had said with 504. And not having it a year and not restricting 5 days, 12 occupants, and things of that nature. So if we were in agreement to modify that before we have an interaction with the public, we could do that, or we could have the interaction with them the way it is right now. And then bring these same things up to them as well.
So let me ask you this, okay, where it says no more than 4 weeks or 28 days in a calendar year of short-term rental. What would you suggest? Is there like another number that would be?
I would suggest no calendar year, but like June 15th to September 15th, maybe.
But you're okay with 28 days?
I'm not saying I'm okay with 28 days. That's 28 days within a, 90-day period, pretty much. Which is 1/3 of that time.
If you're talking the summer.
Yeah, if
period.
you're talking June 15th to, September 15th. That's like saying, hey, even though you own this and during peak time, you can only rent it out 1/3 of that time. That's pretty restrictive as well. So we're going from this being the way it's restrictive to even my suggestion of, June 15th to September 15th. Going with 28 days, that's even more, that's still restrictive. That's still 1/3 of that time.
In my question, and I did ask that, the planning committee is, what are the properties zoned at? Are they homesteaded? Like, are people getting homestead exemptions on their taxes on these?
That's
short-term
something that
rentals?
we should probably look into. I think you could still homestead and be an Airbnb, if you're living there, you
Yes,
know.
Dawn,
Mhm.
Dawn said you could.
And some people do that. I mean, they, they rent it during the summer and they live in it the rest of the year.
Yes.
And that pays the taxes, and I don't see that's used by right. I mean, that's using your property as you may need to survive or to make ends
You
meet.
know, tomato, I mean, used by right, well, I bought an R1 because that was used by right in R1. But now I've heard the word too restrictive too many times tonight. It's like you guys are fighting for the short-term rental and not for your township residents. I'd like to see a nice balance. Rather than just open up the whole thing, let's not be so restrictive, I'm sorry,
No,
but I just
no,
feel a little frustrated here.
no, your point's valid.
I second that motion too.
That Teresa?
No, that was
Nope,
Liz.
it's Liz Ross.
Okay.
And
Can I ask a question of the board? Are there any short-term rental owners on the board?
No, I do not own short-term rentals.
No,
Not
me
yet.
either. Okay.
after we get this practice.
Yeah.
All right, there was a question about conflict of interest in voting for it.
No, no Airbnb here.
But I want to reflect once again on Doug's comments, and other things in my research. When you start taking people's property and telling them, changing their values, basically. Because what they can resell it at without the restrictions that I see here. They would get a lot more than once these are put in place. And there's a lot of damage there to the property owner, and we gotta be careful with that. So there's a balance between character of the neighborhood, R1, I understand all that. But the things that are annoying the people in R1. Which may be blamed on the short-term rental properties, which may be legit in some situations, and others it may not be, it just may be the property owners. And their rowdy friends, and they've owned the properties and it's been that way for their family, has been that way for decades, there is the balance. But again, you can't go too far and damage the property owners, and the value of their property. Because we'll be getting more lawsuits than we are, we'll be getting more lawsuits the other way, that way than we would the other way. In my opinion. That's my opinion.
That little greenhouse on the corner of Arwood and Crystal Beach. The greenhouse on the left, right there at the corner by the stop sign, $2 million. They're not an STR, but $2 million. People are getting money for the places.
So are we moving into public comment? I'm waiting for.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, are we ready for public
Yeah.
comment?
Yes, I think it's time for public comment.
I have a public comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I do agree that this is, a very complicated issue. And this township has been looking at it. I have files from draft ordinances dated back to 2020. So we're moving on to 4 years. That's pretty representative of how complicated it is. And I agree with Christine. I've been at all the PUC meetings. And this is the best draft, I think, that people have come up, and they went through all the notes from all of the past public hearings and all of the past information and all of the local ordinances and all of the things that went wrong. And some of them are actually going to those township meetings and hearings and things. And I also understand that we're not experts. We're not legal experts. We're not experts in short-term rental. But I do think it's really important to make sure that the decision makers, which are tonight for you, have in your minds as accurate of information as you can get. And I'm not sure all of the questions will come to an attorney where maybe you've got a misunderstanding or some misinformation that they'd be able to clarify, and just a couple of them that I want to bring up. There was some confusion on the date, 1973, and how that impacted short-term rentals. 1973 was a date put in there, because that was the date where zoning was passed, not the date that short-term rentals were talked about or discussed, because the comment was accurate. That term wasn't even around back then. But that's when zoning went. And zoning went in for a reason. Zoning went in for the planning purpose of this township, and a portion of that was R1. Now, I would leave to your legal counsel the relevance of permissive versus non-permissive ordinances. Whether you have to list everything that someone can do, or just the things that they can. I mean, all of that, I think those are really good questions for you to get with your attorney, and I'm not gonna weigh in on them, but I am going to remind you, and I know you guys have heard this already, but I am gonna remind you that there are legal cases in the state of Michigan, two that I can think of right off the bat, where the state court of appeals has held that short-term rental, because of its transient nature, is a commercial operation and is not appropriate in a residential neighborhood. The Supreme Court did not overturn that. So the Supreme Court is not waiting. You hear a lot about it. What the Supreme Court said, they didn't. But the state court of appeals did, and therefore that's the highest level of legal engagement that you've got at this point. And you can clarify that with your attorney. I would encourage you to do that. Listen to the lawyers. The other thing is LCCs can be limited. There was an attorney in Milton Township who already opined on that, because that's one of the things that they're looking at, and abandonment of rentals in R1 has been on their radar. I don't know where they are, and they went to a couple other meetings. So, but LCCs can be restricted in terms of their ownership restriction. I'm hearing, like Michelle stated, I'm hearing an awful lot about this is too restrictive, that is too restrictive, property owners' rights. You can't take property owners' rights. I'm a property owner. And I also have rights. And I think those should, and not only that, but I'm a resident. I participate in the functions in this township. I should not only support it financially, but I support it with my hours. And that should weigh in at least a little bit. When you look at the kinds of things that you want going on in your township, it's your residents who are going to stand up and take care of those things. They're not all the best folks in the world. We all know that. We all know their names. We all know the problems that they cause. But for the most part, financial support should not be your only gauge on what's important for the ongoing health and welfare of this township. Open your mind to a broader prospect on that. If I am constantly exposed to the churn of the rentals next door, and I am expected to be the person who has to call, I mean, nobody's ever suggested that you go over there and talk to them because you don't know those people. Then you've already screwed up there. Because I'm not gonna make that call the very first time something happens. They'll go to bed, they'll get over it. Tomorrow will be a better day. You go through all of that before you call. So I'm not sure that setting something up, anything with the ordinances and saying, well, you know, people will, have to call the police if David's in. It's different, I think, if your owner is living in the area or lives in their house except for when they rent. Or, you know, I agree with the concept that an owner is the person who's gonna take care of that. But you've got pseudo hotels up on Crystal Beach Road. We don't want that. You got pseudo hotels advertising for 12, 14, 16 people. Those folks are, well, Crystal Beach, those lots aren't terribly deep. I'm gonna guess those septics are within 75 feet of the lake. I fell asleep on that. But you guys gotta think about that. This is the long-term health and welfare of this township. And in terms of being too restrictive, the ordinance right now does not allow for rentals in R1. The lawsuits can come from both sides of this.
That's one of the reasons why I'm, kind of leaning towards putting something on the ballot, because I think there will be lawsuits either way. We're gonna have that. And we're gonna have the people with the short-term rentals saying, we've been doing this for years and now think so, I mean.
To take a look at the Garfield lawsuit, I think that one was in court 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
Not that long ago. Very similar situation to this, to get to the point of taking, it's not in that lawsuit, which was very similar to what we've been talking about here, wasn't taking rights. It was the township who had never enforced their ordinance and wanted to ban them in R1, I think, and they won that case. There are others out there, I don't know how many or where they are, but you're gonna engage with an attorney, pay them to do a little bit of this research for you, so you have the facts. This is gonna be a big decision for you guys to make. Get the facts. Thank you.
And, the septic part is very important. We want to keep our rivers and waters clean, so even though I have said about this being restrictive, it doesn't mean that, it still means, in my opinion, that we have to be restrictive with septic systems, especially within.
We want those restrictions.
How many feet was it? 900 feet from both or 500?
500.
Yeah, especially within 500.
I was gonna ask too, now, does the septic ordinance, what, that was 500 feet? What, right, how many feet is it here that the septic?
It doesn't talk about it in this ordinance. I don't mean to interject, but I'm not, hold on, I apologize. But Darren Packer, who's the PC chair, and I just recently met with Lee Bus. And Dan matched up the short-term rental ordinance with the septic ordinance. And I am now in the process of trying to figure out how to put a decision tree together so that you can see, if you're selling your property, if you're trying to get a short-term rental lease, if you're, there was one other option in there, then what decides whether you should have to have an inspection. And so that hookup is already there.
And so working together.
Yeah.
With septic ordinance.
Yes, and I don't know when you guys are gonna have that on your agenda, but I know we was in the loop of zooming into that meeting.
Yeah, I think we were trying to.
Trying to get him. All right, so where do we go? Any other public comment, Ryan?
Yeah, so I've raised my family here, lived here for 24 years. Short-term rentals also support families. That's my work. A lot of workers around here. I believe, and like I said, You know, lawyer questions are great. My research shows that short-term rentals are not commercial businesses, except in 2 court cases, or maybe 3 in Michigan, where it had to do with homeowner associations. And then they deemed them. So I don't believe it's a whole community. So, I mean, another good question for the lawyer, but from what I read, they are not when you actually look. But, I mean, there's a lot, I understand. You know, she says she doesn't, I do, but I guess I'm an owner too, but when somebody's noisy next door, I go, and I found everybody's very polite, and usually they don't know that you can hear them. And the second you ask them to quiet down, they do. Today's world is not, everybody's on phones and not very social. I mean, I live up on 40, 50 acres in the hills. Neighbors have moved in that won't even go in their yards or come to their door when you try to bring them a welcome basket anymore. I mean, it's a different world we live in. And, you know, I think when they were talking about rules and regulations, have we looked at our noise ordinance? It's non-existent. And I brought this up with Jim, and I talked to zoning, because we were doing a neighborhood movie on the water, and I want to know when we had to be quiet. It tells me when I can't run tractors, farm equipment, and logging equipment, but it never tells me when I have to be quiet. And we don't even have the basic zoning to enforce, because it's not enforceable. There is not a time where it tells you you have to be quiet.
We have managed to successfully prosecute 1 noise ordinance violation.
Why?
No, just in a neighborhood. So it is possible, but I agree, there are some loopholes there and not much enforcement. Which I think that's our key right there, is if we were enforcing and, you know, keeping up with the bad guys, I'm not so sure we would have these complaints and that, but, we gotta do something. It's not just in the short-term rental areas that we have enforcement problems.
That's right.
So that's
I
something that is a township wide.
I gotta put up with machine guns every night going. What do you do with that?
Sure.
I know this is a public comment, I just wanna say, I bought my property in 2010. I moved in 1,000 feet of Torch Lake. The cars used to line up on both sides of the street during the summer, from Lake Street all the way to Torch Grove Campground, which can be as the street.
See,
Okay. And they used to even park on Westbrook Trail into Clearwater Estates. Over the years, it's been less and less. So now the cars they come off the Arwood, and that's about it. So it's diminished by about a quarter mile, a little more than that. The fireworks has always been the same for the past 16 years. For where I live, okay? So short-term rentals has not been the issue with the noise that I've been experiencing. Matter of fact, the noise is the same, and the amount of people walking up and down the streets and parked on the side of the roads has gone down over the years, especially since COVID. So I just wanted to interject that.
Yeah. Okay, well, I feel it necessary to, oh, I'm sorry.
Can I make one additional comment here?
Go ahead.
If you put this to the voters, you're not getting all of the landowners involved. I can't vote there. Okay, I own property, I can't vote. When I was up there this summer, I talked to a few business owners, and they were saying that if the regulations go through the way that they're talking about, they will be closing their businesses. They employ a lot of people in the area. And has anybody asked how it's going to affect the businesses and how it's going to affect the people that work at those businesses? Just wanted to add that to the comment.
Thank you.
Michelle.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Well, yeah, you were up first, but.
Okay. I just wanted to contribute a few other things to listen, to consider. The comment was made about the court cases in the state of Michigan. And like the gentleman over here said, there are court cases, there are not any legally binding court cases. They are what's called unpublished, which means a court can take them into consideration, but they are not bound to their decisions. It is not hit courts that make that a final ruling. So that's something to keep in mind, because a lot of individuals say, well, it's the court has decided. Not actually. The Planning, Zoning, Enabling Act allows us to question or take to the ballot any provision in the zoning ordinance that we find objectionable when it's passed. What a lot of townships, and it's not just Clearwater, have done is they say, well, it's illegal because it's always been illegal. It wasn't even invented when the zoning came in. So where was our, as the public, where was our opportunity to challenge that being in the zoning ordinance? Well, we couldn't challenge it because it's not there. So there's been a lot of that interaction of it's illegal. Show me what statute exactly, give me the paragraph, put it in print and show me what would you put on the ticket. We didn't say you could do it. Well, you don't say I can have a mailbox or a swing set in there. So that kind of falls under the customary and incidental too. In northern Michigan, renting the family cottage, the term normal and incidental too is what covers being allowed to do things that aren't specified but are normal. Renting the family cottage in northern Michigan is normal. It's been happening longer than most of us have been alive. What I'd like to see is allow every single short-term rental in the township that's currently in existence. And then restrict by license the ones that are a problem. It's a behavior problem. It's a management problem. It should never be looked at as a you exist problem. The problem isn't that you're renting it out. It's a problem that either renters are having bad behavior. And if you have renters with bad behavior that lasts more than 24 hours, that's a management problem. That's managers that are allowing, permitting, not addressing things that are a problem. And that's something you can take care of without restricting one group's rights. You can still restrict behavior. You mentioned the constable as a broader term, an issue for the township as a whole. Something I would encourage you, parking, trash, fireworks, and to a lesser extent, noise, are all in your zoning or general ordinances. A constable or extra hours of police officer is one way to handle it, but so is just having a zoning enforcement officer. It's a lot less restrictive, a lot less expensive. It can be done on a contract work basis, and 100% of the revenue comes to the township. And that's where most of, from the conversation here, that's where most of your problems are.
The thing there is we have to go to court and represent, and that is a pretty intense thing, we have to literally have representation in a court. Our lawyer cost us more than the fines would for a lot of these things.
But for a lot of things, if you're set up to just issue tickets, it doesn't require as extensive a background and might be a way that you could address some of your more common problems like parking. And parking's not even confrontation.
Enforcement is lacking, and I think that's why we're at where we're at.
I really encourage you to focus on addressing behaviors, not whether or not something exists, because that isn't where your problem is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else, public comment?
I apologize. I know it's been a long night, but if I could, to reiterate a couple of points, and I don't think it's an individual's fault because they're misrepresenting something, but there is a lot of misconceptions about the legal standing that has taken place in our state and at what level in the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals. what she mentioned about, and, it's not a binding, ruling is true. And in the cases that have been reviewed at that level did revolve around HOAs and deeds. And there is no binding ruling on anything that's taken place or been evaluated at the level of a township ordinance. That is untested. But historically, our township is a vacation area. It always has been that way. Sue is right. The date of 1973 was picked for grandfathering purposes because that's when the ordinance went into effect. But they didn't make an ordinance because they thought, oh, we've got to deal with short-term rentals and we're gonna call this residential because that's the only thing that this is for. That when that took place, the entire Crystal Beach Road was resort oriented, vacation oriented. It was cottages, cabins, and there were lodges that had been here for years. One end of Crystal Beach Road, it was platted as a resort area. The other end of Crystal Beach Road had cottages and cabins that were rented by real estate companies for years. So the ordinance and deeming it R1 wasn't created to restrict that. Nobody questioned it because it was what we've always done. And that was reinforced.
Protect the lake.
That was reinforced in a review of our ordinance in 2015 and 16 that the gentleman mentioned, where the topic of a homeowner's right to rent to guests for vacation periods was reviewed. There was a whole discussion about how it's always happened in the area. It's a historical practice. So, you know, the underlying argument that it's not allowed because it doesn't say that it's allowed in our ordinance is because nobody ever thought to question it because it had always been happening in the area. You know, the comments or discussions about whether our ordinance is permissible or not. I think you mentioned in other discussions where we have restrictions in our ordinance for businesses, I think for marijuana businesses. Well, why do we have to have a restriction in the ordinance for that if our ordinance is permissible? We probably wouldn't have, if our ordinance is exclusively a permissible ordinance, why would we have to list that as a restricted practice? Because we don't say that it's allowed, therefore it would be illegal, would it not?
That's why we don't have any though, because it isn't permitted.
It was, didn't they have a board meeting? where
We
they
have to
made
opt in
it-
or opt out.
The board in the early 2020 area or late 2018 or 19, when it became legal, it was 2018, I think, when it became legal. That board opted out saying that this township, and they even passed an ordinance, I think it's ordinance 28 or something like that.
But if our ordinance was a permissible ordinance, you wouldn't have to put in there that it was restricted.
I see what you're saying, yeah. But we were required by the state to opt in or opt out at first. But they went one step further and passed an ordinance.
Within an ordinance that if it was a permissive ordinance only, then why do you list that restriction? It's just not exclusive.
That is a little shaky there.
Yeah. And, you know, to round it out, in the mentioning of Clearwater Township and all the deliberation about how complicated this is and how difficult it'll be to enforce. If you talk to folks, in the township, government, they'll tell you, well, you know, we don't have to manage it. It's not an issue. It's a practice that's been happening for years. Everybody knows it. And it's an accepted use of property. It always has been. And they don't have 4-year-long debates about it because it's just always understood to be that way. And frankly, historically, the only reason this has come up, it came up in 2015 and 16, and everybody said, well, yeah, it's always been done. Why would we have a restriction? Let's get rid of this restriction. It's an accident. And they ratified a law that supported renting property to guests for vacation periods explicitly. That's what that was about. You know, now fast forward 4 years ago when this was started, it was because we contracted with the zoning administrator that said, you want a way to generate income for your township and your community? Here's what you do. This is how you can generate income. You tell everybody that you have a permissive ordinance and you go out there and you structure it in a way that you can get permit fees and you can generate income. And this is going to help your township with your funding of whatever it is they wanted to do at the time. That's when the question mark first started. Well, wait a minute, are they legal? Are they not legal? Well, we've always done it. Well, it doesn't say that you can do it. And that's when that seed started to get planted. Prior to that, everybody knew it was happening because it had always happened and it had been discussed at the PC level, due process, and reinforced at the board level.
And I think that the problem is that they are enforcing the basic things, and that's what's allowed this to get out of control.
You are right, Jim, and he was right. If you look at our noise ordinance, if you want to put something on the table and ask the planning commission to jump on fixing something, our noise ordinance absolutely has no teeth. If you read that thing, I would wonder how we would enforce anything that really truly needs to be enforced when it comes down to it.
I feel compelled that we should take a vote here, since we're all here, on whether or not we're gonna send this to legal. I mean, I have an idea in my head how I'm gonna vote on something like that. So I'm curious if the board is ready to entertain that, or if we're just gonna continue the discussion, or what are our plans at this moment?
I don't think there's any real reason to continue the discussion without getting legal's opinion on what we have first, other than the limitations.
Sending it to legal doesn't pass it.
No,
it might make us a little better prepared. You know, they may say, this is unenforceable, you know, and take stuff out. They could recommend changes to make things more enforceable. So I guess at this point, I'm gonna make a motion that we, along with some questions that have been raised tonight about different ways of, and different items that are in here. And we have a good recording. I'll go back through here and pose some of these questions to our attorney if we vote to send it to him. I think if we do send this to him, we should be prepared to either sign a contract with the sheriff's department or something, because at this point, we don't have the teeth to enforce this. So I will say that I'm not ready to pass this, but I'm not necessarily opposed to sending it to legal for an opinion.
That's what.
And to have some of our questions answered. Okay.
Because
So-
I'm not an authority on
Right.
short-term rentals,
And you're
so I have a lot of questions.
You talked about the sheriff's department, you're talking about coming up on next summer, right? Now.
Yeah, we can write a contract anytime we want with them. I would say at this point,
We got a long ways to go.
We just
Yeah.
have
The
to.
motion on the floor, we need to,
well, we haven't made the motion yet.
oh, I thought you were making the motion.
No,
You said-
I'm going to make a motion that we
Oh.
vote, but again,
I thought that was.
we're in like pre-discussion to the vote, I guess,
Okay.
but, I'll go ahead, I'll make the motion, okay, that, with some detailed questions that have been brought up and some of the points that we've raised that there's a little discontent about,
I'd
we
like
can
to,
see.
I'd like to see before you make that motion.
Okay, maybe I can do this before the 18th meeting and we can
Well,
approve it.
yeah, but yes, because sending it the way it is, I mean, I think we need to make those, changes that you're referencing.
Okay,
And then see it in writing before we send it, not just sending it this way and saying, plus the things we talked about.
I think,
I'd rather-
I think the attorney should advise us on whether.
Well, no advice is that we incorporate what we talked about. Sending it the way it is doesn't make sense.
well, here's something I don't wanna do, and that is that we send it to the attorney. He goes over, changes a few things in that, and then we change it again,
That's right.
and then we don't have it in front of the attorney.
There we go.
After we tweak it, I think we're leaving ourselves open for.
But we're
more
asking
problems.
them those questions. You just said you were gonna go over
Mhm.
the
Well,
recording and you were going to ask those questions and.
specifically 504, I think
Yeah,
was one,
yeah.
and there's,
So,
we need some clarification on a few things, I think, but
I mean,
we can't get that if we don't send it to them.
I know this has been going on a long time, but this is the first time that we've gotten this to talk. So, I mean, what's the hurry to send it right now?
Mhm.
Right? I would rather perhaps with the planning.
So then you would be a no vote if we have.
I would be a no vote.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and make the motion that we send this to our legal for consult and clarification and to answer some of the questions that we have. That's not necessarily passing anything, we're just seeking information, okay?
We're not that.
And
I
how
want
about
to do
this?
what you're about to do, but not the way it is.
Okay, so, we have another meeting on the 18th, 1 week
Yes.
from now. Do you think that we can have these questions on paper, things that you want to have answered?
I think that
If
would
there's
be
any
better.
other clarifications that people want to have by the 18th, is that a doable thing?
Do you wanna do the public hearing first so that you hear the pros and cons from the public before you make any edits
Well,
or modifications and send it to the attorney?
I think that's already how we got here. This is the result of a lot of public hearings and people
But
listening.
that's been through the planning commission, it's not been through the.
It's still the public.
Well, I mean,
so-
yes, the public was involved in a lot of the board's meeting, but not
Mm.
with this version.
Well, I'm just saying, if we have a public hearing now and then we send it to the lawyer, we're gonna have to have another public hearing after anyway. Cause we're gonna be tweaking it.
Well, I think it's something that's not going to be decided either way, overnight, right?
That's not gonna happen.
So we have a lot of questions. So who is the authority on those questions? Is the authority the people in the public telling us, you know, their opinion based on whether they have short-term rentals or they don't have short-term rentals? Or the legality of, you know, the township being, at
Again.
a point where they're,
Yeah.
liable and they can, you know, can or cannot enforce,
Hmm.
you know, or ordinance.
We may learn that some of these things aren't enforceable.
Mhm.
And the person that's gonna tell us that is the lawyer. So until we get it to the lawyer,
So I will second the motion.
okay. And again, this was a motion to send it to the attorney for review and to answer some of our questions, provide clarification on other things. And collectively, we're gonna get all those questions to me by the 18th and I will compile all that and send it to him along with the couple of recommendations that were made, the one with all the red letter stuff on there, there was some
And
potential amendments. All right, so, having made that very long
complicated thing. Why don't we read what this says? To send the STR ordinance to legal review with questions and points that have been raised.
Why can't we do that and then have this vote on the 18th?
To do that, to send it on the 18th?
Yeah. Why do we have to make that decision tonight?
Well, we don't. I was just,
Okay.
because we're here and we've had
Okay.
this long discussion, I was just gonna make that. If you're, like I say, if you wanna be a no vote, that would be the thing.
I wanna be a yes vote, but
I wanna be.
I'd rather be a yes vote on the 18th instead of today. Go ahead.
Mhm. We'll get those questions to me then, and we'll compile, and maybe on the 18th, we can,
We still have to take the vote.
okay. And, all right, well, let's see how the vote goes then.
Jim, with you?
As much as I would prefer to be the last one,
Oh.
I'm gonna say, no, because I wanna do a little more clarification, but I more or less would be a yes vote on the 18th, I think, but I'm just not quite there right now.
David Foss?
I'm a no vote, more than likely a yes vote on the 18th.
Michelle Jackson?
None yet.
And I'm a yes. So it does not pass.
Okay.
We'll revisit on the 18th.
We made it on the 18th, we're gonna get questions and issues. Obviously, I'm gonna go through the recording and try to compile a list of issues that were raised there. I know there's gonna be a lot, but I'll try to do that and be prepared on the 18th for that. One other additional comment, I'm grateful to all the input from everybody, and I know this is a very hard decision to make either way. I don't want to throw the township into, like a years-long lawsuits over this. I don't think anybody wins when that happens, but I can see very passionate people on both sides, and I think that that's where we're gonna be, if we rush into it.
And it would be my choice to get input from an attorney because I would not be an authority on it.
Well, let's get our questions.
Talked about what everybody had always done. So my husband's family's been in this community for about 150 plus years, and they could have bought pennies on the dollar property on Torch Lake, but they couldn't farm it, so they didn't want it. Because most of the people in the community were farmers, and when they went to Torch Lake, they had picnics and they'd go have ice cream afterward. So I laugh, it's fun because the vision I see is through my career, my husband's grandparents. So they're like, yeah, we wouldn't buy that, we couldn't farm that.
All right, so everybody knows what they need to do. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just have one last comment, regarding an action that you took earlier in the meeting. I want to commend you guys, MD, I wish she was here.
She's still online.
Okay.
Oh, no, she's off now. She was.
I'm working through the various issues with the computer conversion and uncovering the audit errors and working through payroll tax issues, which I know all of those things are still outstanding and other items as well. I know that there will be policies and procedures in place for future staff and boards. Because these mistakes, as you guys have lived through, as we all have lived through, are very time consuming and expensive to fix. The state came in to help the township, and they did that for a reason. And so I'm hopeful that your new policies and procedures will live through, and new boards and new staff will be informed of the need to be trained in those areas so that this doesn't ever happen again. Because my guess is there's gonna be a taxpayer payment for some of that the next time around. And this should be a teachable moment.
we are definitely at a precipice, and we are definitely very fortunate that the state is stepping in and helping.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for staying active on the issue. I mean, that's really what carried me. Lots of other people had an opportunity, you guys did it, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, if nobody else has any comment, I'm ready for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Three.